Hi guys, this is Ian, aka Anti-Flame, and this is the very first episode of We Need a Plan. And now We Need a Plan is effectively a continuation of my home game of D&D that I play with good friends of mine, and we've been playing together for about 2 years now. We've recently started up Curse of Strahd as a campaign, and as a lot of you know, gothic horror style, but we've delved into that for about 3 episodes off stream. And we've done this session here as the very first on-stream session. So please do enjoy. If you do enjoy yourselves, please head over to Twitch, where we play live on Tuesdays from 7 to 11 PM UK time. And I'll be trying to get all episodes up on YouTube by the weekend after the actual session airs. But, you know, this is early days yet, so we're just testing the waters. Please do give us feedback in the comments. Please do give us, positive criticisms. Please refrain from being, assholes, because, we are just people. We make mistakes. We're, weird and wonderful, and we just hope you enjoy our game. But without further ado, don't let me keep you, and we're going to dive right into Barovia. Alright, hello guys, and welcome to our first session of D&D on stream. It's kind of nerve-wracking as fuck, but we're all here, we're all kind of excited just to get going, honestly. As you all know me, you might not know these faces. These wonderful people are my D&D group. They're pretty good people. There's some of them are hiding. But my name's Ian, as it says down there, as you know, probably from the stream before. But we're just going to go round, do a quick introduction of everyone. So starting top left with Snake.
Hi, I'm Snake. I play Richter. I'm a tiefling sorcerer with the divine soul origin, so clerical, necromancy, bit of both. We'll see.
Perfect. On to Sean.
Hi. I'm Sean. I play Zadie, the Aasimar cleric. She's great.
Holier than thou. And speaking of holier than thou as well, Harry. You're muted, mate.
You're muted. Great start.
Good start, mate.
I knew I would do it. I knew I would do it. Right, so hello. Hello, my name is Harry. I played Guzza the Shepherd, and I'm a half-orc paladin.
Perfect. Yes, you are. To my left, this is kind of surreal. I'm having to point the opposite direction because mirrored cameras. Sophie.
Oh, I am your left. Okay.
You are.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm playing Reha, the Air Genasi arcane trickster rogue.
Very nice. And last but definitely not least, Elliot. Go for it. Bring us
Hello. Yes. I'm Recon Pastry online, but yes, Elliot in the real world. But in this game, I'm playing Trundle Bullfrog, who is a human blood hunter, and we're going to see how that goes.
We are indeed. So, just to fill everyone in briefly, we're going to do a quick recap of basically what we've done so far. We do it at the beginning of any of our sessions anyway, but just to give you guys a little bit more information, we're all sort of at level 3 at this point. The party has just essentially traversed the Death House, as it's very, very appropriately known. They set out on a journey from Daggerford on the Forgotten Realms on the Sword Coast to essentially hunt some werewolves. Venturing through some woods, getting lost in some fog, and coming across a set of gates that they didn't expect to see. They journeyed on through, losing one of their compatriots at the time, Trundle sort of disappearing off into the mist, before they sort of came across this, in fact you guys can't see it, but this town, or at least some semblance of this town, which they, all the houses, all the buildings were boarded up, except one, with a couple of small children outside that sort of draw the attention of Zadie and a couple of the nicer individuals within the party. So they headed in to the house to look after the kids. They said there was a monster in the basement, and before long, everything went a bit awry. The house went evil, the kids disappeared, and they had to fight their way sort of up through the floors, basically exploring this weird-ass place with some weird-ass shit going on. But after sort of traversing their way up to the attic, dealing with several weird ghostly threats, they headed to this small kids' room where they found the bones of the kids. Unfortunately, they were sort of starved to death by accident in the attic, and they took the kids' bones down into the basement where they were to confront an evil monster, but also lay the kids to rest. After journeying through there a little bit more, fighting some more evil things, having some close calls against some ghouls and a grick which got actually torn apart by Trundle, they laid the kids to rest, made their way to this huge hall where a ritual was seemingly taking place, or at least it was being suggested it should take place. And after no time at all, I think it was Richter again. Richter stirring the pot, decided to shoot a ball of ice at this mound of earth in the corner, which unsurprisingly woke up Lorgoth I believe it was Lorgoth the Awakened, or Lorgoth the Destroyer, the Devourer.
Oh fuck!
I'm going to
can't
mute
believe
that.
You've done
That's
this.
supposed to be muted. There we go. Perfect. Thank you for the sub though. And as they ended up sort of fighting this enormous mound of earth, they had a couple of close calls. A couple of people went down, but they managed to bring it down and destroy the Lorgoth the Decayer. Once that was destroyed, they made their way out, but the house was having none of it. The doors turned to scythes, the rooms with fireplaces filled with smoke, and they barreled their way out, barely making it out, but arriving at where we are now, standing outside this house in the town now no longer covered in fog. Or at least it's a little bit misty, but the same town they arrive in, it appears to be sort of mid-afternoon, and that is where we're going to pick up, guys. So as you step out of this house, or I say barrel roll out of this house, through the sort of swinging scythes in the doorways, smashing through the wall and whatnot, you find yourself standing in this town. It's not a town any of you recognize. And like I said, it does appear to be the mid-afternoon at this point in time. There appears to be like a looming shadow almost over the town, but you do see it seems to be over the northern half of the town, at least where you stand. As you look around, you can see some houses to the north, sort of a little crossroads to the south. And I know you can see the whole map, so don't worry about it too much. But you sort of stumble outside of the house, the sounds of the blades are still whoosh, 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 swinging behind you. You see no one, but you do hear this horrible sort of this lamenting moan coming from sort of to the west in the center of the town. You hear this kind of this just coming, echoing from far into the town. You don't know where it is, but you can hear the direction it's coming in for sure. It's sort of to the west. But you stumble out. You're all looking kind of worse for wear, and having not got a good night's rest. What would you like to do?
You said it was coming from the west?
Yeah, to the west of town. Again, the map directions, that's north. It's pretty clear.
I'm starting walking east.
Okay, well, you walk east, sort of, you heading just directly past the house
If anyone
again?
wants to stop me, that's
I
fine.
mean, I'm gonna try and stop it, but I am 2 points of exhausted
Can I
and
take a
heavily
quick look
bleeding,
around?
so...
Yeah, by all means. So Zadie, you managed to put your hand on Rhea's shoulder and slow her down. What do you...
I'm just gonna
Don't
shake
make
my
me
head and
go.
just be like,
We
Don't
might need
make
to
me
check.
go.
Sorry, so one sec, Richter, what are you looking for? Just-
I just want to see how many people are around, any particular signs, anything that really gives away its location.
There's no people around. This town,
Okay.
all the houses are somewhat
Anybody?
boarded up. Besides the one that's sort of behind you. You look back at it now, seeing it better in this sort of this afternoon, with a bit of sunlight coming through the overcast sky, but barely any sunlight. It still looks exactly as you saw it before, except all the windows where they once were, just bricks all the way up. Again, the change to this house seems to be on like a material level. It's a weird place and probably somewhere you don't want to revisit. But looking around, there are several boarded up houses near you. Go ahead and make a perception check, actually, whilst you're at it.
Time for an upgrade perception check. Ah, it's still pretty good.
15's not bad, actually. So through the hubbub of the scythes behind you, the sort of commotion with Rhea heading off one direction, Zadie trying to slow her down a bit, you hear the moan, and you sort of glance around, and through some of the gaps in the houses, in fact, through the gap in the house opposite, between the two houses opposite the death house, which is for your indication, this house here, that is the crazy house. You see like a glimmer of light coming. It looks like, you know, some sort of lantern torchlight coming from effectively the center of the town to the west. For your reference, again, there, sort of that big central building, which you can barely see at all, but you see light coming from it. And you hear the faintest sort of sound of, like, it's very faint, sort of chatter, a door swinging open or closing.
Okay, that's interesting. Before Ray decides to go running off, perhaps we'd all be interested in this looming light off in the distance, to the west, where the noise is coming from. I say we go look.
I wasn't running, I was walking purposefully away from the scary noise.
A brisk pace, but regardless. Who's in favour of going to see what's going on? I mean, it hasn't hurt me so far.
Sorry, Ian, quick question. Would we know where the entrance is to this place where we first entered?
What, the actual town?
Yes. Like, didn't we go through some gates of some sort?
You went through some gates, but the journey beyond there was another sort of a good sort of half an hour or so, 40 minutes. So it wasn't like gates town. There was kind of like a band where you were walking along some sort of pathway that slowly turned into cobbled streets, which you now find yourselves on, like rough, broken cobbled streets, but cobbled nonetheless. From your memory, and again, because you can kind of see it on the map, it makes it easier. You sort of came in through here, sort of from the east. You came in to the west and sort of hit that crossroad, which is where you saw the kids, and where sort of you got drawn up into that area. So you know that there's like a path that leads out to the east, and it seemed to, well, again, from your brief visual in the fog, it seemed to continue to the west, but again, you ended up heading up north.
So wait, we can't see any people, but can I smell anyone, any humans or anything?
Go ahead and make a perception check. Because you're using smell, I'll say sure. Give it advantage. Why not?
Is he very obviously using smell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, he is.
Perception.
So he's just sort of sniffing the air.
Nice.
What the fuck
19's
is
pretty
wrong
good.
with you?
Smelling the air. I mean, this is still something you're adjusting to. Smelling the air. I mean, you don't. I mean, you get the smell of like there's some people around. You also get the smell of kind of decay as well, like rot, mildew, and wood, all that kind of thing. But I mean, there's no specific source of the smell of people. What you do get is the sense that, similarly to Richter, there seems to be a bigger hub of people to the west, kind of a bigger centralization of people there. And you also get the smell, I guess, of sort of, because this is 19 is pretty good, and because of your advantage and the reason why, you get a smell of sort of decay, like decaying life, as in, you know, up to the northwest.
Okay. Well, I'll relay that back. Smell something. Something's off. Body's decaying, maybe to the north.
Yeah, because you're still new to you. You're not used to using your senses in this way. You're not quite sure what that means exactly, but you can definitely smell it. So what would you like to do as you sort of stand there? Rhea stopped next to Zadie, and the rest of you sort of deliberating. Where would you like to go?
I mean, if there are folks west, there's probably somewhere to sleep, which I could do with.
I think sleeping would be wise.
It would be very nice.
A night's rest wouldn't go amiss, so perhaps that's in our best interest. Shall we?
So
I start walking that way.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, there's actually not too much space between the houses, more than like, you know, thin alleyways. But you're able to make your way down to this sort of this crossroads to the south. I changed the token up, but you guys can all see it. I will just flip to it briefly for everyone else's visual. So you all sort of arrive at that crossroads and start heading sort of to the west. You make it to about this point where you look around and see that there's a couple of sources of light here, and the moaning definitely seems to be coming from the south of you at this point, sort of a building down that direction, or at least in that area. But directly to your south, there's sort of a bit of sparse light that's sort of running out from this T-shaped building. There's heavily drawn curtains, but you do see a sign hanging over a door right about here. I'll say you see it as you reach this area, and because it's one of the only two sources of light, you see it pretty clearly. the sign hanging above the door says Bildwrath's Mercantile. And I'll type that down for you. However, there is a more noticeable place that would pique your interest as people looking for possibly a place to stay. And it is indeed the big building to the north of you. You see as light spills out onto the street, into the square, and it kind of looks like this, besides this small glimmer coming from these curtains of the building to your south, Bildwrath's Mercantile, this beam of light is like the only beacon of light in this area. It sort of stands out distinctly as all the other buildings, all the other shops that look like they were once here, are all boarded up. There's signs that have been long scratched away, or the signs hang from one chain as the other one's been broken. This one, however, you see a sign above the door proclaiming this to be the Blood on the Vine Tavern.
Oh, this sounds great.
Yeah, very homey.
Sounds like my kind of place.
And the
I stroll up to the door.
Sure.
I think we should go attend to the person who's upset, though. Like.
Yeah, you hear this again. The moan is louder here. It does just seem to be this kind of like crying moan, sort of stuttering, sort of like blubbering in between the kind of the loud lament is more of like this kind of just like sort of echoing out. I'll say it, you're able to tell it does sound like a female voice.
Okay, can I call to them and be like, "Hello?
You call,
need help?"
You call out into the sort of into the street below. It kind of your voice echoes out, and the crying just continues. It seems to be like louder than what you were trying to do, or further away, but it seems to be sort of echoing out where you are. However, as you step up to the so as you're sort of standing there, yeah, I mean it doesn't seem to respond to your voice calling out. However, as you sort of step out there, it does appear, I'll say based off where you stand, that it is coming from this building here, the one sort of the two down from the T-shaped building, Bildwrath's. Richter, as you make your way up to the entrance, because you're quite high in perception, right? Are you?
Apparently.
Or is that just because of dice rolls?
That's because I've had some great
Okay.
dice rolls non-stop.
Okay, well, I'll say
Yeah.
anyone with a passive perception of like 12 or higher, it's not particularly difficult. As you look up at the sign hanging there, or sort of on the wall, the name wasn't actually originally Blood on the Vine. The name appeared to be Blood of the Vine, and the F has sort of been scratched round, like fairly roughly, and is now in the shape of an N, like a lowercase n. You're not quite sure why or what that entails, but nonetheless, those of you with a sort of a passive perception of 12 or higher do notice this kind of out of place thing. Additionally, actually, is this time of afternoon, as you look up to the west, and you see this beam of light hit, and it kind of startles you slightly. You look up to the west in this clear space in the center of town, and you see a large edifice. This is way off in the distance. I don't know quite how far away, maybe half a mile to a mile away. This great edifice of rock just jut up, like a flat plane just shooting straight up, peaked by a pointed castle. This grandiose structure causing the shadow to fall on the northern half of the town. You kind of almost have to step over this crest into the shadow once again as you sort of look up at it, and the light from the sort of blocked sun is fully or almost fully blocked by this huge rock mountainous edifice, probably a mile high or at least half a mile high, and the castle jutting out above. This thing is a huge. It's hard to see it exactly because of the light coming from behind it, but you still see the silhouette of this beautiful, great sort of structure jutting up into the sky.
Would we have heard of anything like this that's happened before?
Go ahead and make a... What, you mean like for the castle?
Yeah, or I mean just in general, an edifice coming out of the ground.
Go ahead and make a history check. Because it does look like a man-made structure, at least as far as you can tell. It's just off in the distance.
Have nice beds up there.
Okay.
Looks a walk
15's
away
pretty-
though, and I'm feeling pretty slow.
Yeah.
15's pretty good. I'll say, in terms of what are you trying to glean, just in general, like from the check.
Is this something that we should be worried about as it's happening? Or...
Well, it's not. Sorry, excuse me. Maybe I explained that wrong. It's not like rising out of the ground now. You're just only seeing it because of your line of sight on it.
Oh,
all the buildings were kind of blocking it. There was shadow coming from it, but you're unable to really see the source. Now you can see it. So it's not. Sorry, it's not sort of shooting out the ground. However, even though you're not particularly book smart, you have no knowledge of any giant castle in the middle of the woods in the Forgotten Realms. Like, just, you know, there's tales of huts or of old forts or castles that have crumbled into the swamp or something in some of the woods, but nothing like this. And nothing like this town even. It doesn't sit right with you. This doesn't seem like it should be here.
Sure.
And it gives you
earlier, by the way.
Hmm?
Sorry, earlier, by the way, when I saw Elliot's character, sorry, which has just escaped me.
Trundle.
Trundle, thank you. Sorry, so the only one that's not on Roll20, sorry. When I saw Trundle doing the sniff thing, would I have sort of seen like a, hey, that's what dogs do? That's a bit weird, or anything like that?
I'll say...
Considering like I'm of like a farm-ish background.
Sure, I'll tell you what, go ahead and make a...
I mean, I'll take animal handling, and we never roll animal handling.
Sure. I was going to say insight, but they're the same stat, so why not? Go ahead and... You've chosen...
animal handling.
Yeah, why not?
I've never seen it.
I mean,
Nope.
it's not terrible.
Neither have I.
Yeah, you see him sort of, you noticed him, he wasn't hiding his sort of, like, sort of smelling the air, but there's a kind of almost like a wood smoke smell to the air anyway, so, you know, it didn't immediately set off like animal instincts kind of deal. But yeah, I mean, you noticed it just didn't seem too out of place, albeit him then saying, there's the smell of undeath to the north, maybe is a bit weird, but this isn't the most normal bunch of individuals.
A little whiff of it, you know?
Little yeah, a little scent.
So
Anyway,
weird.
Zadie, are you... Sorry, before you all head in, Zadie, are you heading down towards the source of this crying?
I mean, not by myself.
Lady, hold on.
I mean,
We
I got
must.
something.
Yeah.
I'll step away from the tavern.
If you really want to go, I will go with you.
I mean, I just think, you know, if we were crying in the middle of an abandoned undead town, we would want someone to come to us.
Sure. I would be getting out of the undead town rather than sitting on my ass crying, but okay.
Nothing bad's happened so far, right?
I mean, the last
Shut
time
up.
I paid attention to a child crying,
Everything
it
bad
went
has happened because of you, because you won't leave shit alone.
I haven't done anything.
You keep touching things.
I don't know what you're referring to. I just ignore her and walk off towards where Zadie's
Just
like intending to go.
Sure. So what you're heading towards where Zadie's sort of looking.
Yeah,
and...
I step away from the interesting tavern.
Sure.
Totally my vibe.
So are you all heading in that direction effectively?
If
Yeah.
we must.
Okay. So you pass the door to this Bildrath's Mercantile, and again it seems like it's open. There's like a small sort of swivel sign on the front that just says "Open for Business," but it seems pretty quiet besides the glimmer of light in it. Don't worry about it. But you will start heading down here, and it does become very apparent as you stop outside that this is coming. This crying, this sound is coming from the house right there on your left as you step there. It's not deafening, but it encompasses the entire area. The crying is just echoing out and filling the area you stand in. The doors are shut. The windows seem to be boarded up from the inside, but you can hear this crying coming from what sounds like an upstairs window somewhere.
Now, Zadie, forgive me, but remember the last time you followed some estranged children in the middle of a street into a house and everyone almost died? Perhaps this would not be in our interest to follow this voice, considering it's coming from inside the house.
Yeah, but
And
those
there's a
little
perfectly
ghost
good
kids did
tavern.
need to be put to rest.
Are you tired?
I'm so tired, but I
Perhaps
just don't
we
know
should-
that I can leave a crying.
I don't want to be the voice of reason, but I'm pretty sure the crying, much like the children, won't go anywhere.
Would you like me to have a look in the window? I can do that.
And you say I'm the cause of all your misfortune. Go ahead.
I mean, only if you think he'll be safe. I just don't think we should leave a distressed person.
I might make them more distressed by peering in the window.
That is true.
That is-
Maybe we'll yell up first. So I'll just like shout up going, "We're coming to the window."
The crying, as you say that, there's like a brief sort of like sniffle and pause, and then the crying just gets louder. It just sort of like, it pauses, and then you see this, "Ah!" and it just rises, and it starts to like echo out throughout the area. It doesn't like, shake you or anything weird like that,
I'm
but
not good with ghosts.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll try. If I make them upset, then
Okay.
all right. I'll go up to the window and I will cast levitate on myself.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make an investigation check quickly.
Let's not
Um,
distress the baby.
Just go ahead and make an investigation check.
Cast levitate. Freak it out some more.
This is just to
Why
see if you
not?
can figure out. There seem to be a few open windows upstairs. They're kind of like ajar. This is just to figure out exactly where it's coming from. Yeah, 14's fine. 14's fine. So
Okay.
you walk around the house, sort of pacing it just briefly, and it does appear to be sort of on the south side of the house, sort of over here. So you do make your way around. You place your hand on yourself, and you start to sort of rise up. Just you see as Rhea just starts to just lift off the ground, weightless, just on the spot at the time. What you like to do is you sort of levitate there on the ground.
Yeah, I'm just using my hands on the side of the house to kind of guide myself and keep myself level towards the windows, and I want to just raise myself high enough to see, just peer through over the windowsill of the window that I know the sound's coming from.
Sure, you bring yourself up, and again, the window is about 25 feet high or so, so it kind of takes you 6-7 seconds to kind of pull yourself up to that point. As you all see, Rhea, having been, fairly, not magic averse, shall we say, but having never cast any magic around you, per se, suddenly starts to just, like, lift up off the ground. However, she seems to be doing it of her own volition. You don't feel like, she's being sort of summoned up or anything like that. As she floats up, you see in, as like some billowing curtains kind of sit there in an open window frame. It's quite dark in there, and you don't have dark vision, but you do see from the faint light that's coming from outside, on the floor, on the wooden floor of this seemingly empty, more or less empty room, you see this woman hunched over in sort of like beige rags, look quite dirty. Her face visible, she looks human, looks to be sort of in her. It's hard to gauge exactly, but she looks like she's sort of maybe between her late 30s and early 50s. And she seems to be clutching like a doll in her hands, just sort of crying and just clutching it close, and then she sort of looks at it and just like wails back and cries some more, and it echoes out. You see her sort of her head arc up and cry. Her eyes seem to pass over you. She doesn't seem to like notice you. She seems so engaged in her own misery that she doesn't even sort of react to you.
Just bail. Call it there.
Excuse me?
You see as her head, she sort of tilts her head up and looks at you slightly, just sort of eyes just like, again, wet with tears, sort of stained almost down her front. Her voice actually sounds almost hoarse as she kind of like coughs slightly as she sort of sees you, briefly pausing in her crying. She takes a couple of deep breaths, looks really confused as she sees you floating outside, and kind of just, you see her kind of clutching the doll, and she sort of scurries back a little bit, maybe just shuffling back about 5 feet. She clutches the doll and she's like, "Who are you?
Please,
how?
it's okay.
How?" And she like, looks really
It's
confused.
the thing I do. It's magic. It's okay. It's good. It's good.
Is she talking to the window?
Everything all right up there, sweetie?
A crying lady with doll is okay, I think. 1 second.
Standard.
Very standard.
Okay.
But she looks bewildered.
Hello?
like-
It's okay. I'd not hurt you, but I hear you crying, and I want to help. We want to help. I have friends downstairs with me.
Again, she seems to be almost like looking at you, almost looking like vacantly past you. Like looking, she doesn't seem to like fully be settling on you. She does briefly, occasionally, but like her mind, her vision is just so all over the place through the sort of stained cheeks. But she sort of just stutters like, she just, what do you want?
Well, we want to help, I think. What's wrong?
It's gone. She's gone.
Who's gone?
And her voice again, she starts crying again. Like it seems like she's able to communicate, but she's struggling, and she just sort of bursts into tears again.
Ay. Who is gone? Who is gone?
She sort of like stutters and what goes, "My baby, my daughter, Gertrude, she's gone." And she sort of puts her hand and dries her face briefly. She's still like really bewildered at you floating outside this window, like you're not attached to anything after all.
Yeah.
And she looks confused.
No. Okay. I'll sort of raise myself up a bit and and perch myself on the window ledge.
Yeah, she sort of startles slightly, but she seems. You've talked to her a little bit. You don't seem hostile. She kind of freezes and whatnot. Just like she sort of locks herself there, still clutching this doll tightly. You see her knuckles almost white with just like grip.
Your daughter. What happened to her? Where did she go?
She ran away. I don't know where she's gone, but in this land, she hasn't come back. It's been a week.
Oh, that's a long time to be gone. You don't know where she went.
She just shakes her head. Like she looks distraught. Quite simply, but she just like again she starts again. My Gertrude, I don't know where she's gone. I don't know. And then she sort of just starts going into it again, just crying, wailing.
Oh. Can we hear?
I'm gonna sort of lean out the window.
Yeah, you can hear the exchange. Like it's quiet, but you're all able to hear it if you're clustered up around the outside.
The doll lady says her daughter ran away.
Okay, well, I guess we're finding a child then.
We should run away too.
We know if there's a child lost. Ask her where she saw her last and where she might go around here, and we'll go looking.
Okay. Where did you see your daughter last?
As you're sort of like perched on the windowsill, she seems to have almost made her way forward a little bit towards you, like crawled almost across the floor, like to get to you. But not aggressively. She just seems to have like made her way back to where she was
Not
before.
gorgeous style.
Not none of this. Yeah, exactly. No, I'll save that for another session in the future. No, she sort of stops there, like again, hands still clutched on the doll, and just says, "She was in the house, and then I went out to grab some bread, and I came back, and she'd absconded. She'd gone."
Wait, you left the house and you came back and she was just gone.
Yes, but she took her stuff.
She took her stuff. That's how you know she ran. Okay.
Some of it, at least. She took one of her pretty dresses, and she just sort of again, and she just kind of crawls back away from you again, kind of like in this moment.
Is this doll hers?
And she stutters for a moment. Go ahead and make it just like a general, I'd say persuasion check, like to continue the conversation. Really, you see she's like really struggling to kind of maintain her composure.
Should we just kill her? Just put her out.
And that's how we became murder hobos. So
Session 1, murder hobo.
12's not great. She is like really struggling here. She kind of just sort of whimpers out, and she kind of pulls herself to the back of the room and clutches herself to like there seems to be an armchair in the room. She just clutches herself to the foot of it, one arm up on the cushion, and she's just there holding the doll. Just you can't help. No one can help. She's gone.
Oh, you don't know that.
She says, just leave, please. Can't do
let
it.
us
You'll
try
only
to
make
help.
it worse.
Make what worse? How can it get any worse?
And she just bursts into tears. She becomes almost inconsolable at that point.
This is... comforting crying mothers is not my strong suit, it appears.
And mine neither.
She's been gone a week. Perhaps we could do an extra night's rest wouldn't hurt, surely. Bearing in mind, this isn't for my sake. I'm not tired. I'm perfectly fine, actually. It's more for
you are feeling quite fatigued, to be honest. You haven't got any points of exhaustion.
But I'm feeling okay.
We didn't have the best night's sleep.
No, you had a
last
pretty
time,
shitty
really.
night's sleep, and you have
It
had
was
some.
pretty
Although you
fucking
haven't been, say, impacted in combat, Richter. You do still feel like you've had your energy reserves kind of drained, just by almost being in that house. You kind of feel like you're sort of just sapped. But of all of the people, you're probably the most like okay. So it's fair enough. But
I mean, but this house ain't as haunted as the last. Maybe we could ask if we could stay here and then look for her child.
With this crying loud.
Well, we
lady.
could look after her. She probably hasn't cooked for herself for a while. I've been around some grieving mothers. They ain't so good at feeding themselves.
you hear her voice sort of echo out. She seems to be able to hear your conversation, unless you're like having a quiet one. Like, are you keeping it quiet?
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, yeah, she doesn't react. But she seems to be sort of like sobbing inconsolably, and she just screams towards you, Rhea, as you perch on the window. So she says, "Just go away! Leave me alone!" Just screaming it out.
Okay.
Why not? She
Okay.
doesn't seem super amenable to that.
But she doesn't hear what you say. You know.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sort of push myself off the from the window and
drifting ever so
and then
slightly.
just drift away.
Yeah, you drift about 5 or 10 feet away from the windowsill.
And then start to lower myself down.
Yeah, and just sort
I'll
of
head
lower
back
yourself
to
down.
the.
The crying continues, unfortunately.
I'm gonna walk with Trundle as well, if he's gonna walk back.
Yeah.
That was a waste of time.
I mean, we know that we have to look for a little girl, or I mean, we didn't get her age. We got her name though, right? What was it?
Perhaps the body of it.
You got the girl's name. The
Gertruda.
girl's name was Gertruda.
Gertrude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, it
There
was
you
kind
go.
of through sobbing, but you did get Gertruda as her name.
You know, we can look for her.
They had no idea where she went.
I mean, that's why we're looking.
Well, she did take her stuff.
We have nothing
Perhaps
to
she
go
didn't
on.
found.
We have
She was in the house and then she wasn't.
Did we ever
What
consider the
monster
fact
to
that
think
she
of?
left of her own volition, and perhaps she's an unfit mother? I hate to be the one to say it, but no one leaves and takes all their belonging.
Yes, but does a little girl leave her doll behind?
I
Does
mean,
a little girl run away?
Little. She could have been like 16.
She could have very, very easily have been
Maybe.
of age to adventure, surely. I digress.
Are we moving
Rather-
back to the pub?
Yeah,
Move on.
pub.
Okay, so you
Go to
also
the Winchester.
Yes.
Have a
Yeah.
pint,
you,
wait
are
for
you
it
still
all to blow over.
levitating? Well, I guess you're gonna have to drop it to keep walking. I'm assuming.
If we're moving off, I'd like to quickly grab Zadie's shoulder just before, like, as everyone else is moving on a little bit.
Yeah,
Just
sort of trail on. You're still walking, but like slowly behind them as everyone sort of makes their way towards the tavern.
Zadie, a moment if I may.
Sure. How you doing? You feeling any better? We had a rough
Yeah,
time. You had a rougher time. I'm so sorry about that.
No, I'm fine. I don't know about you, but that look that Trundle did earlier, there's something about it.
Oh yeah,
Only
he's a
if-
weird one for sure. I mean, he's friends with
Mm.
Richter, so you know it ain't gonna be great.
Thing is, like, I only seen two kinds of folks make that look. I mean, a boy looking for trouble, or a dog looking for food, and I'm not sure which right now.
I love how Rick
Well-
Sorry, go for it.
Well, we should keep an eye on him. I'm sure he's fine though. He did some good stuff back there. He was super useful. Quite stabby. That thing with the sword. Yeah, we'll keep an eye.
Thank you.
I just love how Richter gets guilt by association. It's just like, oh sorry, no, Trundle gets guilt by association from Richter. It's like, well, he kind of hangs out with Richter, so he's got to be a bit weird. No, okay, so you finish that conversation, sort of catch up with the others as I'm assuming Richter being the sort of the forward-stepping individual.
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah, you push the door open.
Reluctantly, mind you.
Yeah, you push the door open and you swing out into a tavern that's pretty quiet. There's very few individuals inside. I'm just going to try and switch the music a little bit to just give you a bit of tavern atmosphere, hopefully. Might be really quiet. It might not play at all. It's always that possibility. I don't know. Anyway, it might be playing, it might not be. Okay, that's fine. Well, oh, it is playing. It's just really quiet. There you go.
Oh.
Anyway, we'll keep that going on in the background just because it's kind of nice. So it's fine. It's a weird tavern. It doesn't make much sound. But as you look inside, there's enough floor space in here that there's a sort of a bar that kind of stretches over two sides. But you only see a few individuals in the Blood on the Vine tavern. There's immediately as you step in on your right, there appear to be three women. Now, unlike what you kind of expect in this drab and dreary town, these three women appear to all be dressed in kind of slightly more colourful garb. There's sort of big shades of red, purple, blue, like deep sort of royal blue, sort of amongst their clothing. And they're sitting, chatting, and have a few sort of drinks between them, and seem to be playing some sort of card game between the three of them. All sort of, bear with me one second. If you want to check something here briefly. They all speak in common, but they all have this kind of this kind of it's hard to describe. I'd say effectively a gypsy accent, that kind of Eastern Bloc state kind of twinge to their voices as they chuckle and play cards with one another. Alongside that, in the room, there are several empty tables. A short, pudgy barman who's sort of cleaning glasses mindlessly. You see him kind of just staring vacantly. He barely acknowledges your entrance as you step in. There's no sort of ding ding as you step in. The door just swings open. You see a fire burning on one side, and sitting a couple of tables down from the fireplace in the corner, you see a youngish looking guy. He appears to be in his sort of late 20s, early 30s, kind of a blondish greyish. It's blonde. It's like almost platinum blonde hair, but it looks a bit dirty and murky. And he's wearing some nice black leathers. But he's just sitting back there with a tankard of, or it's not a tankard, a sort of a flask of wine, sitting next to this small sort of goblet that he has, like one of those sort of handle, but not a like fancy wine glass. And he just seems to be sipping it, and as he sees you enter, he's the only one who really reacts to your entrance. He sort of sees you and eyes you somewhat quizzically, but sort of still sits back in his corner seat. Other than that, there's the individuals to your right, the three women, barely even react.
Okay,
Is he hot?
Go for it.
Platinum blonde hair, I mean.
While Zadie inquires about the looks of the individual, I'll approach the bartender.
You approach the bartender, like I said.
Is he hot though? Let's find out.
The bartender?
No.
Anyone.
The other individual.
That's a matter of opinion.
All right, Zadie.
But you see, like, as you sort of walk over to the bartender, he kind of just glances up at you, sort of looks up, his eyes kind of vacant. He's just sort of cleaning the glasses. He doesn't even say anything. He just sort of cleans them, sets it to one side, and continues to sort of clean the next glass along. You see, he's kind of got this chain of about 20 glasses, and he's sort of getting towards the end of it. As he's sort of cleaning them, setting them down, you see the kind of the dish suds kind of just dripping off them. And he sort of looks up and just sort of almost grunts. He goes, "Hmm?"
And that's pretty much what I look for in a guy.
Okay. Hello, good sir. Room for an evening?
He kind of just shrugs slightly. We don't really do rooms. Just a tavern, not an inn.
Would you be aware of anywhere nearby who does offer a room?
He just kind of just, like, again, looks vacant. He just shrugs. We do ale. He sort of just looks at the tap near there, and then goes back to kind of cleaning the glass. He still kind of occasionally glances up at you, but there's just like this hollow expression in his eyes.
Thank you for your time. I head back to the group.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a little uncomfortable. Can I cast Divine Sense, please?
Okay, yeah, you cast Divine Sense. Looking around, nothing pings your radar. I mean, again, you do get what is it? Celestial Fae and Fiends? Sorry, what was it? Okay, Celestial Fiends and Undead. So you get a very slight, and it's faint. You get a faint twinkle from Zadie, and you get a faint sort of not so much twinkle, more sort of like the fiendish nature. You get a faint sort of emanation from Richter, but again, it's a feeling you've had before. Tieflings are sort of that bridge between the kind of the demonic or the devilish, excuse me, not the demonic. Yeah, exactly. Apologies. I got to get my races right here. The devilish and the human. It's the kind of like the mid cut. Meanwhile, Zadie, being an Aasimar, is more sort of that not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily need to be from a godlike celestial being and a human, but they can be these kind of unique children that spawn from out of like a very rare chance of it happening, or they can be some sort of union between celestials and humans. But yeah, you get those two little pinks, those little twinkles, and that's it. So the
bartender seems to be unhelpful, I'm afraid.
Do you do food? Yeah.
He nods slowly, says, "We've got a stew in the back," and he sort of gestures towards this door behind him that sort of hangs kind of almost slightly off its hinges. You can just see into what looks like a sort of a little kitchen, a small kitchen space, and you can hear the kind of the bubbling of a pot.
Is there anyone back there?
It's a couple of inches ajar. Like, it's enough to let the sound out, and you can kind of see a dim light from within, but you can't see anyone within.
I'm going to start walking back there. Just.
Oh, it's behind the bar, effectively. So it's like there's a bar that goes round. There's kind of like that flip side on one end, and a little bit once you go inside the flip side, there's a door through there.
Okay.
Yeah. He goes, "It's 2 copper for the stew, 1 copper for a," and he sort of gestures, 1 copper for an ale, 1 silver for a flask of wine. Those of you that
have water.
Trundle slams down 2 pieces of copper, both for drinks.
He sort of nods and goes, "Very well." And he sort of just slides it, pockets it in this, like, the kind of like, you know, that sort of, not quite a fanny pack, but that sort of thing that a lot of bartenders have. He's got like a very dirty apron with the patches in the front.
Yeah.
He kind of just drops them in there, and you hear them clink gently. And he just starts taking the glasses that he's just cleaned, still slightly soapy with like very faintly soapy with the water that he's been cleaning with, and just starts tapping a couple of drinks on 2 of the taps and just leaves them sitting there, and goes back to cleaning the glasses. Those of you that aren't actively doing anything, so I'd probably say Zadie and, I mean, Richter, you just kind of stepped back. Go ahead and make a perception check, both of you, whilst you're sort of looking around.
Sure.
Yeah.
My first bad roll.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty good. So yeah, Richter, you're sort of just slightly entranced by this weird, sort of seemingly like dense individual who sort of sits in front of you or stands in front of you. He stands like maybe 5.5 feet tall, not even. Again, he's chubby. He looks sweaty. He's balding. But he just looks. His eyes look almost hollow, like, you know, just like you could kind of just wave in front of them and he just wouldn't blink. But he goes and sort of he's still tapping the drinks. Zadie, you notice as the sort of conversation's taking place, as Richter first asks about lodgings, and then subsequently the bartender starts listing off the costs of drinks. You see the individual in the corner, just sort of like, you know, sort of seemingly like staring in your group's direction. You catch his eye briefly, and he lingers on it for a moment, not in like some sort of dreamy romantic way. He just lingers on it because he's sort of staring at you, and then he kind of just steps back. He leans back and starts pouring himself some wine. But as this is taking place, as you're sort of making decisions, Zadie, you do ask for water at that point as you're sort of leaning forward, and he just goes, "Of course," and he takes another one of the soapy ones, and you see him basically just plunge his hand below the table and come back up and place on the table what looks like it's slightly cloudy, but it's clearly water. It just looks not particularly pleasant.
Cool. I'll give him a copper and be like, "Thanks," and then I'm gonna head over to the corner with this wine drinking guy.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's funny as you sort of take the glass and start to head over in that direction. He actually starts pushing himself up slightly from his seat and starts making his way over to you. It's not far per se, but he gets past his table and sort of rests his hand on one of the chairs next to him. As you see the individual in front of you, which, bear with me, I will be able to show you. He looks like this. You're going to get his name already. I appreciate that you don't know his name yet, but he will introduce it in time. As you see the kind of the chiseled jaw, his eyes do look tired, but you see this individual sort of in front of you. And for those of you watching, there you go. You can kind of see, I can't make it bigger, but you can see that right there. This individual so steps forward and
handsome stallion.
Well, now we know.
Yeah. I'll leave him there actually.
You used to look like that.
As he steps forward and sort of, you see almost like the first kind of genuine smile you've seen since you've been here. The 3 women playing, you hear a bit of raucous laughter, but they kind of just eyed you slightly and then kind of were disinterested in you. The bartender stone cold, and anything you saw in the death house was, well, not particularly pleasant, or human or smiling. Besides maybe the smile of the kids when they weren't sort of terrified, when they were sort of in their spectral forms. This is the first genuine sort of smile you see as you see him sort of look at you all and sort of extend his hand out to you, Zadie, as you approach. He goes, "Welcome to Barovia.
Howdy, I'm Zadie. It's lovely to meet you."
You see him sort of taken aback slightly as he sort of hears this loud voice. As even the bartender kind of looks up vacantly as he's pouring your drinks. Trundle, you see as the the drinks that he sort of tapped for you are just kind of pouring over slightly. He hasn't really paid much attention to them, and he sort of catches it and goes, "Huh," and he just sort of flips the taps back up and just puts these completely full pint glasses on your table. But looking across, he sort of again just this individual looks at you, Zadie, and says, "You're not from around here, are you? And he sort of just nods to all of you, sort of, not. I don't recognize you.
No, I'm afraid we don't even know where we are for sure. We came hunting some werewolves that have been bothering some people down at what was it, Daggerford, and we ended up here. We've been here for like maybe a day or so now.
Go ahead and make an insight check, just as you're having this conversation.
Cool.
Are we sitting at this table?
Could I do an insight check as well? Sorry.
Sure, yeah, you're eyeing the I just want a couple of checks there. 10's okay,
Right.
but you probably wouldn't spot anything out of the ordinary.
I want to sit at this table.
4 neither. You're actually Gaza. Perhaps you're like slightly interrupted his eyes. They're almost like they're almost like a green grey. But he kind of looks at you. He looks across at all of you and gives you a genuine smile. Zeddy, when you say Daggerford, you just catch the briefest glimpse of not recognition, effectively. Like usually if someone recognizes, they'd maybe go like, oh yeah, I know that place. You kind of just get this stall for a moment, but he kind of hides it briefly, and he just says, you see him sigh slightly, and he just says, well, come take a seat. Do you need any drinks? I'm happy to cover them. Please.
Oh no, we got it. Don't worry, honey.
He says, I insist, from a Barovian to outsiders. Welcome to the village, or he just sort of gestures, and
I'll flag him down
the
from
world
the bar.
of Barovia.
Does he leave the table?
He's sort of come up to this table, put his hand there, but his drink's still back on the table with a sort of pitcher, and he does sort of walk past some of you to go to the bar.
Okay.
And
I want to quickly slide on over and so like hushed voice tells Zadie, perhaps it'd be in our best interest not to tell everyone we're not from around here.
I mean, everyone here seems to be a human, and we're an Aspmar, an orc, a tiefling, and an Air Genasi.
Travelers.
So I don't think it's going to take them
Travelers.
much.
Yeah,
We're still not from here.
yeah, and to that point, everyone in this tavern is human, besides yourselves, where one of you is human, and he's a bit grisly looking, perhaps. So you see his as this individual, he says, as he's sort of ordering drinks at the bar, and you see the barman slowly just pulling out a couple of these thin white sort of flutes, which he fills up with this wine in a barrel at the back that you see is called purple grape mash. He sort of just taps it and puts out these two flutes, where the individual sort of hands over a couple of silver, and as he's doing so, he turns to you all and says, apologies, it's I'm not used to this. My name is Ismark. Ismark Kolyanovich. They call me Ismark the Lesser because of my father, but well, that isn't going to be the case for any longer. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Come sit.
Oh no, you tell us all about it.
He sort of smiles and says, I appreciate the offer. Come sit, and he gestures to this corner table. It's sort of near enough to another table that you're all able to sort of sit either on a couple of seats around the edge, or of one table, or sort of sit at the other table, which is only a couple of feet away. So you're all sort of congregated around here. And he puts down a couple of these two things of wine and pulls out some glasses as well, and puts them all around and says, by all means, the wine is yours to drink. I have my own here, but I am happy to share.
Could I get some stew, please? I am quite hungry.
He sort of says, yes, of course. And he sort of calls out. He says, Azik, a stew, please. And he says, okay. And he sort of just shuffles back through the door. You hear the kind of as it shuts. And he comes back out about 30 seconds, a minute later, with this bowl that, again, it kind of looks like he's just taken his hand and just dunked it in the stew. There's a bit of sort of stew just dripping off his fingers a bit, and he places it on the bar, just pulls a little bit around it, and he sort of just says, he's kind of trapped in a little bit. He's in a corner seat, and you're all sort of sitting near or around him. Just sort of gestures to the bar, and you're able to sort of get up and grab the stew. It smells pretty basic. It's bits of sort of wheat barley and potatoes and little flakes of meat here and there. It looks like sort of beef, and it looks tasty enough. But I mean, it's simple, but it will fill you up at least. And all of you are probably feeling a little bit hungry if you haven't sort of snacked on any rations. But
Do you frequent here often, Ismark?
So it says, can I catch your names, by the way? And he sort of looks across at all of you, sort of expectantly.
Reha.
Reha, that's an interesting name. He sort of looks at you again. Your hair very slightly almost suspended in the windy state almost, but he sort of looks at you slightly mysteriously. But you're all a ragtag bunch of individuals. Reha, he sort of looks across at you, Richter.
Elthwick. Richter Elthwick.
He sort of nods and says, "Well, Mr. Elthwick, it is a pleasure to meet you in this time." And again, he does the rounds. Sort of, any of you?
Oh, can I grab his?
Yeah. By all means, he sort of turns to you.
I really want to grab his hand, just hold it, and be like, "Guz is the name. I must say, there's very few things that are sharp as this scythe here, but that jawline of yours, I must say, it surely is something else."
Go ahead and make a.
And then just release.
Just make a general charisma check.
I do a spit take of stew across the table.
Ooh.
Oh fuck, that's pretty
red.
good. He's sort of as he sees as he sees you say this, he chuckles slightly and just sort of says, "Thank you. I didn't expect some, and please take no offense to this. I did not expect such genteelness from such a formidable individual as yourself." He sort of just smirks and smiles at you, sort of. You know,
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, good sir, and I will sit back down.
Yeah, he sort of. You almost see him just like he's relatively pale, and you see just the faintest bit of red just appear on his cheeks slightly, just sort of, taken aback, not quite sure how to behave. He then turns to you, Zadie. Sort of, I did not catch your name, but it is a pleasure.
I'm Zadie Kell. My friends call me Zadie, so you just go ahead and call me Zadie.
Actually, you did already say your name, didn't you?
I did already say it.
Yeah. He's like,
I'm
oh,
happy to redo it.
apologies. I of course, Zadie. How could I forget? And he sort of looks across and sort of looks at Charno almost slightly mysteriously. He says, "And you could be from around here, but I do not recognize you." Sends a hand out to you again. So he seems to be the one to extend his hand out fairly quickly in all of these.
I don't extend my hand back. I just sort of take a long sip from my drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've
Swish it
drained
around
about
a bit.
drained about half of an ale already by this point.
Trundle. Bullfrog.
His hand lingers there as you say this for a brief moment. He sort of just like
Oh, well.
pulls it away, like understandingly, like, well, it is my pleasure. And you see him sort of pause for a moment. He says, I haven't said this yet, but I guess I am the Burgomaster of this town. Yes, I'm the Burgomaster of Barovia.
Burgomaster?
Yeah, so I'll spell that for you. I'll say because of you are not your characters. You're not your characters, and you aren't from those kind of the where they're from. I'd say go ahead and make a history check. And I'll say Zadie and anyone else, whoever rolls first after Zadie.
Oh, I'd be more directly interested.
Mine's
in
great.
this.
Mine could be amazing. Yeah.
He still hasn't answered my question.
Sorry,
Is
what
it in
did you
history?
ask? Apologies.
Does he frequent this place?
Sorry. I was kind of just trying to get the introductions out of the way. Yeah. So a
Introductions must take place. It's only proper.
Yeah, 3 you're not sure. A 10 it's probably good enough. A Burgomaster is like a term for a mayor, effectively, like an elected or an individual who presides over a town or a village. It's generally not used for anything bigger scale than that, but that's about all you know. You just know it's kind of like a position of elected or unelected power, but he seems unsure about himself as he says it. And sorry, I did type it out. Excuse me.
You're in charge of this town?
I wouldn't say I'm in charge of it, but
You have a position of power, correct?
Yeah.
he says
It's messed up.
he
Seriously messed up.
he pauses for a moment. He says, my father, Kolyan Indirovich, he was the Burgomaster. He passed a few days ago, but
My condolences.
he says it's okay. It's you're not to blame. I know who is, but
I hope.
he sort of nods nonetheless. But it is not a common sight to see outsiders in this place, this town, this You see him sort of trailing off on the trying to find the word exactly. And he turns to you, Rick. He says, "I frequent here from time to time, but there's not exactly many sociable people in this town, in this village."
It would appear that way.
And
Do you know why many people decide to seclude themselves? We've encountered many boarded up windows.
he sort of looks at you all and sort of tries to gauge a bit of an opinion. You have not been here long, then, I suppose.
Recently, we've been here about a day.
He sort of nods. He says, "So I suppose you have not experienced the true terror this place can bring."
That's not what this place said on the brochure.
I mean, I sure hope we have.
I assure you, we have experienced a fair amount of terror in the past day of us residing in this place.
Sure.
I spent some time in an undead plant monster. I've experienced enough horror, thank you.
He sort of looks at you strangely and does see the kind of, you are kind of still somewhat dirty. You've cleaned yourself up a bit, but like there's only so much you can kind of clean yourself up without fully cleaning. You're like actually taking clothes off and cleaning them, and having been fully submerged in murky water, both by a creature and of your own volition. Remember, there is you do all look a bit sorry for yourselves, but he chuckles slightly uneasily and says, "Maybe you have experienced some terror, but you haven't experienced him." Did you see the castle? He sort of gestures, like as if to sort of indicate a direction. Did you see the castle up on the hill overlooking the town, overlooking the village? Excuse me.
Sure, yeah.
But nothing more.
I most certainly know nothing about it. True.
I lean over to Guzza and say,
I didn't even bother trying.
looks like you've got competition.
Yeah. He looks up. He sort of looks up almost as if he's looking through the building. Perhaps he says, "That is where the Devil Strahd presides. At least that's what everyone likes to call him. The Count."
I'm not sure if I've heard of him in my past time.
There's no check to make. None of you have heard of this name.
Can I smell him?
Did you find him,
No.
maybe?
Well, you don't know what he smells like. It's like going, "Hey, sniffer dog, go find some cocaine." It's like, but it hasn't smelled. I know. I love it. It's like,
Strahd on the air.
yeah, you're like,
Like
his scent hangs heavy in the air. Yeah.
Let's go and face him now at level 3.
Freshly roasted stars.
Yeah. So, no, you don't have any. Unfortunately, for your sake, you don't have any indication of quite what he smells like. So you don't know.
Fair enough.
But
It was a long shot.
It was. But I respect you for trying. I respect you for trying. This is me, not Ismark. But he looks across at all of you and just sort of says, He has created this hell, whatever this is, wherever we are. No one can leave." And he sort of like leans in. No one can leave this place.
Oh shit,
Those-
are we stuck here too?
He sort of gestures and says, "You know those mists you've probably seen?" And he just sort of like looks at all of you, and he just kind of nods as if to infer that, yes, no, you cannot leave.
They're not friendly, those mists.
It has been a long time since I've ever heard of a friendly mist, but yes, no. This is where we are damned to stay, and I'm sorry to be the ones to tell you this, but where you are to stay as well. He sort of just shrugs.
Were you born?
Well, if we're here, we sure are here for a purpose, I'll tell you that. We'll clean it right up.
He sort of looks at all of you though. He says, "But
So it doesn't have to be bad news. You look all glum, and there's no need.
well, there's perhaps a favor I could ask of you.
Sure.
You look to be of."
I just give Sadie a look, just like.
He sort of like.
I just take
I'm
another
sorry.
slug of wine, just like.
Sure,
ugh.
and he looks at all of you and says,
Hey, we don't.
I hear you need a place to stay tonight, and well, there's no one else in this town that is willing to open their doors to you, but
If we got round that fast.
wait,
Small town. I know how it is.
you see-
I'm from one.
you see him look a little apprehensive, but he does say, I could sincerely use your help. It is.
Were you born here, Ismark?
He
Finish his sentence.
he nods. He nods. He says, "Yes, I was."
It's important we know that where he comes from. If he came here of his own volition, or
I've
whether
been
it
here.
was his father's doing.
I have been here as long as I can, as long as I know. My father has been Burgomaster all my life, and well, until now.
Did he, unfortunately, step into this place?
I do not know. I do not believe so. Our family, as far as I know, has been here for generations, but it is the fate of all Barovians to.
Forgive my interruption. Please
Yeah.
continue.
It's quite all right. I am. What I ask of you is not is something. It is not a great undertaking, but there's no one else in this town that is willing to help an individual, or my sister and I, to bury our father. I
know someone who'd be more than willing. Just shoves Zadie ever so slightly.
I mean, he looks across at Zadie and says, "You have already indicated your willingness, but which I appreciate humbly. But I feel it is only fair for me to at least impart to you what it is that I ask of you." And he sort of looks at all of you for kind of like gauging a reaction. He's got a resounding yes from Zadie. He's got a pointing at Zadie from Richter. What about the rest of you? How are you kind of reacting to this? Or not at all, if you choose not to.
In return, is it? Was he offering us a place to stay?
Mm-hmm.
He nods. Yeah, I mean, if you ask, yes, he nods.
Yeah, I mean, in return, yeah, that's what I ask.
I say.
So. Yeah, no, you can.
Sorry, buddy. I'm determined to interrupt
It's all right.
you.
It's all right.
No, I wasn't. I was just saying so to sort of think aloud.
Sure.
Right. So, I, with hair that doesn't exist behind an ear that's not there, just try and put it behind me and just look at him and say, "Excuse me, did you say that there's a sister of you?" Just looking.
Oh my god, pick one.
He nods. Thanks to your really high charisma check before. He kind of doesn't really get what you're saying. His defenses are a little bit down, and he just goes, "Yes, my." And you see him like glance around the bar. There's only the three sort of gypsy-esque ladies and the barman who is you see those of you that are kind of able to see him from this side of the table looking out like against the wall, sort of facing inwards. You can see that he's of the line of mugs that he's cleaned. He's kind of just gone back to the beginning and started cleaning them again. Like it seems like he's really just a dull life for an individual like that in this village. But sorry, what was it you asked? Excuse me. Sorry.
Oh, I'm asking whether or not a sister, a sister exists of his.
Yeah. So he looks and just says, "Yes, my sister Ireena, Kolyana, she." Can we talk elsewhere? I fear prying eyes. He sort of says, "We can finish our food." And he gestures to Rhea or our drinks and head to our. You see him sort of struggle through the word mansion.
I
Take it to the bedroom.
I lean in a little so that like trying to keep it from prying ears and just. I saw in hushed tones. Are you untrusting of the individuals in this facility?
I'm untrusting of pretty much everyone, but outsiders. I mean this in the nicest possible way. You haven't been changed by and don't know the full extent of his powers. What ears might be listening at any time. And you see him just sort of glance. He's glancing around almost nervously.
You have my interest.
We'll
continue this elsewhere.
It would be appreciated.
Perhaps where you reside. And I smile.
He sort of nods and says, "Yes, that would be the case." And sort of says again. You finish again. He sort of says, "Shall we finish our drinks and go? Is that amenable to everyone?" He looks across at all of you.
Right.
We were trying not to drink. You remember that, right? I mean, I know it's been a stressful day, but
I remember no such thing. Probably because I've been drinking.
That's why you were in jail.
Next time
I
Zadie
was
tries
not. I was not in jail because of drinking. Far more interesting reasons to be in jail.
next time Zadie tries to grab her fork to eat something, I'm just gonna knock it off the table and look at her blankly and be like, and then just go back to eating my own food.
Oh, so you've all ordered food? Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah,
Oh
so
no,
I haven't.
Oh, I thought we all had.
Yeah.
No, it was only
No,
No,
Ray.
I think I was the only one that
Yeah.
actually
Sorry.
ordered
Yeah,
food.
that's
yeah.
quite
Be selfish if you.
All right, I knock her drink. I'll go one step further.
Wow, you knock over the murky, sunny water that Zadie sort of again almost chewing through, and yeah,
that would have been.
That's such a Ranston description.
it's not. I mean, it's water. It's not
In
fet.
the
It's not
loosest
fetid, but it might have been used to wash dishes with. Like you're not. Yeah, it's really not. Like that's what you were served. It's a bit cloudy, like I said. But
Trundle, are you
but you-
satisfied with your fill?
I am.
Uh-huh.
And you?
I will partake at a later day. Just making sure you are satisfied.
I am.
I remain cross-armed this entire time, just sort of leaning back in the chair.
I sort of scowl slightly away from him, kind of look down.
so you so you will finish up your food or drinks, everything you have there.
If there's anything left in the bottle, I'm taking the bottle.
Sure, they're not bottles more than like sort of. It's being dispensed from a huge keg into like a I don't know what you'd call it, like a flask, like a sort of a fluted wine thing, which would probably hold about a bottle's worth. And after you're all done eating, who's been drinking, just to gauge an idea? Has anyone been drinking? So you've been drinking your ales plus probably some of the wine.
I've just been having the wine mostly, I think.
Okay, Trundle.
Yeah. I've had a couple of berries.
Sure,
with the boys.
and Richter, are you drinking at all? So Richter, Zadie, and Gaza, none of you are drinking, correct?
Nope.
Cool. Okay, just to clarify. So yeah, you guys finish up your meals and whatnot. There's probably still about 2/3 of a flask of wine, as Ismark himself has been drinking. You know, he finishes his. It was already partway through, and he starts on that one as well. But you know, you all sort of share it out. Those of you that are consuming it. And are you trying to like conceal it away, or just take it openly?
No, I'm just quite openly taking it.
Sure. You pick it up, and you will sort of start to leave. No, they're fine for now. You're,
Really?
you're fine. But you will start
We've
sort
been
of
here
heading
before.
out with Ismark sort of leading the way, and he goes to open the door. Ray, are you hiding this wine at all? Like, or are you just carrying it in one hand? It's like there's no way to stopper it. It kind of would slosh about if you tried to put it in a bag.
No, I'll be carrying it quite openly.
Okay.
He has to disgust.
So
It's
as
drinking is a sin.
yeah, as you head towards the doors, you see, like, again, those of you sort of funnel out before Rhea, but as you sort of make it to the door, a hand comes out from the table. You see, as they're still playing cards, the three women, but a hand comes out and just sort of grabs your arm, and just turns to you. So grabs you by the sort of the sleeve, you know, not like physically by the arm, but just grabs you, turns to you, and looks up at you with her sort of like, she has a bandana on. She has these dark curly locks hanging beneath. And she looks up at you and just says,
Hey.
I will be taking that, thank you. And she sort of takes it out of your hand and sort of puts it on the table and says, don't try and steal from our establishment, okay?
Oh, it's your
And
establishment.
she just
is
sort of
it?
just shoves you back with her hand slightly, like not enough to like send you tumbling, but just enough to kind of give you that force back as she sort of pushes you and just sort of sets the wine on the table and just starts pouring it like out into a glass herself and starts drinking it. Sort of sets it down in
I'm
the middle of
pretty
the
sure
table.
we paid for that wine, but okay.
And you try to steal the flask. You pay, you take, you don't take, we keep.
Fine.
And she sort of just like waves her hand as if to say scurry on. And then they sort of like, the other two are sort of just like staring at you. Not so much a glare, more just kind of just staring. And then they sort of go back to playing cards as they sort of start like, there's a chatter and merriment, and there's a bit of like a chuckle between them. As you all sort of leave the tavern.
Is it an obvious card game they're playing, or would none of us know?
Are any of you card game aficionados?
Uno.
So
Magic the Gathering.
It is MTG. It is MTG, sponsored by MTG. No, I'm kidding. No, it's not a game any of you recognise. You see them sort of they seem to have a hand. There's some cards being laid out in the middle. Some of them are positioned in front of the player. Some are in this central pile. You don't really understand what's going on, but it appears to be like it's not too particularly fast paced. You see them kind of looking at their hand, mulling it over a bit, and sort of playing a card down. Sometimes, you know, from the brief bit you've seen, there seems to be some element of like stacking cards and you know, matching suits, but that's about all you get. And the cards look a little bit tattered and worn. But as you make your way out into the sort of the cool, now sort of turning to early night, sort of evening, early night air, you start to make your way down, sort of south in the town, down through the crossroad, past the wailing, which seems to have subsided, at least for now. The wailing seems to have stopped. You imagine that the woman that you saw, even in her distraught state, must have to sleep at some point.
Let's go wake her up.
And it seems like now is the time. But
I'm gonna walk up to Ismark and go like, "Do you know that lady who lost her daughter?"
He sort of nods slightly and just sort of looks up at you, sort of shrugging slightly. Her name is Mary. She's known by the locals here as I think you see him slightly, Mad Mary. Yes, her daughter's been no doubt taken by Strahd, and well.
See, look, now we know where she is. We said we'd go find her, so I guess we'll be doing that.
As you say that, his eyes widen slightly, and he sort of actually stops and like puts his hand sort of on your shoulder and just says, I would not suggest going to see him. You will not return. He has powers beyond all of you, beyond myself, beyond even the most capable individuals in this place.
But we've got at least 2 gods on our back.
And he leans in at this point with his hand on his on your shoulder. He kind of leans in, like gets to maybe like sort of 6 inches away, and just says, "In Barovia, Strahd is God." And he just sort of like leans back and just sort of.
I would like to break those two being so close to each other and just get.
He's not romantic in any way. There's a stone cold look in his eyes as he sort of just stares. But he just says, he sort of leans back. Come, we shouldn't be out at this late at night. And he sort of gestures down the street, and he leads you again all the way down to this rather large, albeit a little bit ramshackle, somewhat broken mansion you see down the end of the street. It's not well illuminated. There's no lights you see from within, and there's an iron fence that kind of circles the outside, or sort of, it's not circular, it's square, but you know what I mean. There's a gate, of which one half lies on the floor, sort of within the mud. It's just broken, and on the other half, it swings lazily in the wind, sort of occasionally squeaking to the sound of the wind, sort of pushing into it and pushing back. He kind of.
Sorry, is there a suggestion that this has happened recently, or he seems very used to this? He's not reacting poorly to the situation.
He's not reacting. I mean, he doesn't look happy about the state of the house as he sort of walks up to it. That much is clear. You kind of just see as he sort of.
But he left it like this.
Yeah, he turns and says, "I apologize for the state of the house. It is. Well, we've done what we can to protect ourselves in the night. You should hopefully find safe shelter here." And again, as you sort of get closer to the house, you can see that the actual gates are like bent and twisted. The one that's on the ground is just bent and discarded practically to one side. And he kind of steps through the opening that its lack of presence creates. You see as the kind of the ground around it, within the fenced area, is all kind of dirty weeds and overgrown grass that is sort of twisted and gnarled. But again, you have enough perceptive members of the party to notice that there are claw marks all over the kind of the walls, all over the kind of, there's wood paneling on the outside of the windows, which have just been boarded up. There's like scratch marks, almost like a couple of points at which it looks like it could have been burnt slightly, just ever so slightly. And in amongst the weeds, in the depth of the weeds, on the very inside, you see there is essentially a path of just like trampled ground, as if something or someone has walked around this house and just slashed at the walls. It's pretty scary, and you see that there's even possibly stains of blood on a couple, just sort of spurted up the side of this wood. it's a pretty horrible sight. But he walks up to the door, which again, that's the only part of the house that isn't barred up at this point. He sort of walks up and just sort of knocks. He does like a bit of a sort of a secret knock, a pattern to his knock. And it's not particularly complicated, but he does it, and you hear this voice come from within. Just goes, "Is this Mark? Is that you?" And he goes, "Yes, it is me, sister. I have brought companions." And you hear her voice waver slightly, and she says, "You're not with him, are you?" He says, "No. It is me. I am clear of mind. He's not here."
Clear of mind.
Is
And she's,
he sometimes here?
you see as the door sort of creaks open, and as you say that, Ismark looks at you and just says, "He has tried." And the door sort of swings open as you see a rather dashing looking woman. She's not necessarily beautiful by the traditional sense, but she has long red hair. She wears a breastplate and has like a sort of a
twinsies.
She wears a scarf that sort of like, you know, a coiffed scarf around here with sort of red trim on all of her clothing. She peers through the door, and although she looks afraid and relatively meek, you see that there is a certain sense of sort of almost gravitas to her. She just opens the door a couple of inches and looks out, observing everyone, before swinging the door open a little bit wider, and she just steps aside, but like looks at all of you as you come in. She, which you can guess is Ireena, looks like this.
Oh my.
Oh my god, she's like the sister I never had.
Control yourself, Harry.
Gaza is...
Gaza, control yourself.
Excuse me.
What happened to Gaza? I thought you were
Gaza appreciates beauty, okay?
Very nice. One sec, I'm just trying to get it so that I can have both of them.
Which says a lot about the other four of you, by the way. If it's only now you've just discovered that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's like the only thing I've got going for.
Yellowish.
You've got Pelor.
That too.
I saw.
But
one
he
of
brings
my
out the
horns
inner
of
beauty.
hideous.
Yeah. So.
Trundle is pretty hideous too.
Yeah.
As far as humans go.
I feel like an air genasi's pretty.
She literally takes your breath away, but then...
Yeah.
The attractive gang.
Trundle used to be hot, and then he changed.
Too much math.
Yeah, but you see, as she sort of stutters as she opens the door to you. She says like, "Come in. Sorry, it's been a harrowing time." And you step into this interior of this mansion. It has a nice sort of wide hall foyer. Again, slightly eerily reminds you of the mansion that you went in last night for a brief moment. But there's none of the windmill decorations there. A lot of the doors seem to be kind of ajar or open. And although it's kind of well furnished, you see a candelabra sort of sitting on the mantelpiece. You see a chandelier in this main hallway, probably worth a decent penny. It seems to be sort of inlaid at least with gold. You see that there is a lot of sign of wear within the house, like it hasn't been done up in quite some time. There's boarded up windows on the inside as well as the outside from what you've seen, and weirdly enough, especially this is noticeable to the two of you. Wait, let me get my directions right. The two of you, Zadie and Gaza, you notice the presence of what look like holy symbols in pretty much every room. You know, you see, and this does strike a chord with both of you, but specifically Zadie. What looks like wooden symbols of the sun.
Yay!
Sort of above archways, between rooms. It seems like there's more than you'd expect from even like a religious family, but they don't seem to be kept in any sort of shrine or anything like that. They all just seem to be dotted around the place, over archways between doors, things like that. You also notice, as they sort of lead you into the room and lead you into the hall. Oh, it's that's why Sophie's disappeared for a sec. Yeah, so Sophie, so as a note, Sophie has a new puppy, and it is a little bit needy from time to time, so she will occasionally disappear off like this. But it's totally fine. That wasn't the puppy being hurt or anything. It's a lovely little thing, and she cares for it.
Just shit on the floor somewhere.
Yeah, probably. But as they lead you in, Ireena seems to be hovering by a nearby door. And as she does, she sort of looks at Dismark and says, "Have you told them?" And he sort of nods and says, "This is what I would like you to help me with." And he sort of gestures into a side room where it looks like it once was a dining room, a fairly fancy dining room, but the chairs have all been cleared off to one side of the room, and within the center, lying in a fairly simple wooden coffin of sort of very basic construction, surrounded by flowers, and they look like they're sort of wilting and dying, and there is the faint smell of death. Not undeath, but death. You see a body of an individual who looks to have been in their sort of maybe in their 50s. A man with sort of thinning hair, his face sort of cold, pale, slightly sunken. His hands rested across his chest, and dressed in fairly sort of clean robes, but sort of a bulging belly kind of hanging underneath the robes. His hands just sit there, and she says, This was our father, Kolyan Indirovich. He was the Burgomaster of this town but age has caught up with him, with Strad's assaults on this house, as you saw from outside. His heart gave in. He couldn't take it anymore. He assaulted the house for weeks, and one day, and you see him look kind of, there's almost, again, his eyes just moisten ever so slightly, but he doesn't cry as such.
I'll put my hand on his shoulder and just be like, "Seems like a mighty fine man."
And Ireena just says, he was. He took me in when I was young. I don't remember much, but without that, I don't know if I would have been as fortunate as I was. And Ismark sort of just looks at it and goes, "Ireena is not my sister by blood, but she is." And he sort of looks at her with a, you see almost a burning kind of like a brother, and it is brotherly love that you kind of sense from it. It's not some sort of weird incestuous kind of thing. You just get the
clarifying.
Yeah, I just want to be clear.
We were all immediately went there.
That is where your mind's
I didn't see much resemblance.
They're
there.
not related. Yeah. Something must be going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, was it the cousins of Danger Row or whatever it is?
Maybe.
He looks at her. He looks at her and says, "Look, she is every part Kolyana, a child of Kolyan, as I am. But this is what, and you seem kind of struggling with exactly what to say. This is what I need help with. Ireena," and he sort of looks at her, and she sort of just nods slightly. She says, "Ireena has been the target of the Devil Strad's affections. He seems to desire her, as he has done with many women, but there's a strange, burning desire he has for her." And he sort of glances at her and says, and sort of nods to her, and she says, "Yes, he." And you see her sort of like her hands trembling slightly. She sort of reaches up to the like coiffed scarf and sort of pulls it down, where you see two sets of faint puncture wounds in her neck.
Oh shit!
I would say for. I'm trying to think who this would even.
No, I say this very openly.
I'll say Richter, because of your. I mean, all of you are kind of involved in this check, but I'll say because of the nature of it, I'll say Richter, and I'll say Trundle maybe. Go ahead and make.
Medicine check.
Yeah, I'll say medicine. That's good. Medicine or Arcana.
Can I smell it?
You can't smell it.
Stop trying to smell things.
It can be. I'll say it can be medicine or Arcana.
Can I try both?
Nope. You made your check.
Ooh, that's bad. That's even with proficiency.
Arcana? Nah, let's do a cheeky little. Where the fuck is Spencer? Boom. Holy shit! Apparently I'm sick.
Wow.
That's pretty good. I mean, with your experience from your past, both of you, Richter, you're more the one creating sort of holes by with the with needles and sort of helping people's curing people's blood. Trundle, I mean, all of you know of what a vampire might be. None of you have experienced them in your life, to my understanding. Although Zadie, yeah, go for it. Yeah, you do have some theories about them, and whether
Taylor invented them, so I know quite a lot.
at least that's what you believe. And you're totally inclined.
It's true because Taylor said, so it's true.
Oh, it must be true.
My daddy said too. So.
Okay, so you're aware of this, but that's about like it's almost like a folktale to all of you. Trundle, it's quite clearly looks like 2 sets of bite marks. Now, rolled into this medicine check, I'm going to go ahead and say that from your experience, and this is a collective check as well, like a group check of sorts, just with a couple of people rolling. I'm a
blood hunter, so
yeah, exactly. Like that sort of tends into why you're aware of what these people are, what these things are. It looks like she's been bitten by a vampire, but she doesn't seem, from looking at her, to be a vampire herself. She looks like she's perhaps a little bit shaky, a little bit weakened, but she still looks fairly stern. But it doesn't look like she's been turned. And I'll say again, rolling that medicine check, you have a vague understanding of this, because it is not territory you would have covered, that vampires can they have to not necessarily go through a ritual per se, but they have to really exert themselves to turn someone. And as she sort of shows these two one looking slightly fresher than the other, these two puncture marks near this neck region, you get the sense that this was undoubtedly done by a vampire. And that immediately springs to mind. Ismark gestures to her, and she says, He has tried to take me, but he has only come twice. I fear what he will do if he comes again. He cannot enter.
What is it?
Sorry, go for it.
Sorry. What is it about you that? I mean, I don't mean to sound rude, but you say that he has sought many women in the past. What is there? Is there something in particular he desires about you?
Bear with me. I'm just going to check something out here.
Well,
aside from your obvious good looks and
Ray,
stuff.
she's objectively attractive. I don't see any reason why.
Yes, I know, but
I
am not going
to
to.
the
I'm not
darkest
going to
evil.
assume
It
that
always
this-
goes for it always goes for the strongest good. So I think it's just a sign that she's
Well,
succeeding.
I don't know. Maybe he has a type.
Well, they both kind of shrug and say, Ismark kind of takes lead of the conversation. Just says, I don't know why he covets her so, but it is very clear that he does. He has coveted other women in the past, and his fixation appears to be on Ireena at this time.
Are there any that we can speak to?
What's that?
Are there any women we can speak to?
He sort of shrugs and just says, none that I know of. What he does to them, well, I'm not sure. I fear he turns them into other nasty creatures in the night, but I do not know. This is my first real experience with his twisted ways. And again, there's a certain sense of venom in his voice. And Ireena again pulls the scarf back up, just says, he cannot. The tales you hear about vampires are somewhat true. And again, this is the first time the word vampire has explicitly been used. Some of you are not overly surprised. You kind of go, "Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense." Others of you might be like, "Wait, really? A what?" That kind of thing. Because from all you know, those stories and that they do exist somewhere, but that none of you have ever had to deal with them. She looks and just says, "He cannot enter this premises. He cannot enter a premises unless he's invited, but he has ways." He looks into your eyes, and then you cannot control yourself anymore. I don't remember quite what happened when this occurred, but I do remember, and you see it kind of shudder slightly, the burning desire in his eyes. It's like an animal. And again, she's kind of seems almost taken aback just by the thought of the whole experience. And Ismark kind of puts his hand on her and just, "Sister, it is more than we need to share.
Gaza nods him, empathetically.
Yeah, he looks thankfully and sympathetically. There's like a sense of like a smile. It's like a weak smile, but a smile like that you're all sort of sympathetic to his cause.
Can I grab Ireena's hand and be like, that must have just been awful for you?
Yeah, as she's kind of like still reeling from this, as you grab her hand, she flinches and kind of pulls away slightly, but she kind of calms herself and sort of like she doesn't necessarily accept it, but your hand rests on hers, and she sort of just nods and says thank you.
So were
Is her hand
the
cold?
sun
Sorry.
were the sun symbols actually like were they Pelor symbols? Like,
go ahead and make a religion check, and I'll say for you make it with advantage, because
I hope so, given that I've got it all over me.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's more for just like the comparison. It's gonna be very hard to like fail this. Even it's not a high DC either. I just want to make sure that
roll
it's
20. Come on, man.
sure.
Do that one.
Come on, roll 20.
I managed
No,
it last
just
session or the session
well.
before.
Yeah, man.
Come on,
Oh.
come on,
Come
Rotten.
on. Come on. Come on, you can scroll.
You know what I'll do? I'll give it to you because
That's exciting. I've clicked it now, so please give it to me before it like goes.
it gives you 2 nat ones. Yeah. Okay, that's a
Yeah,
19.
yeah,
That's
fine.
really good.
Wait.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so 19 is plenty. They, for all intents and purposes, they are near identical to Pelor symbols. You don't see any kind of specific thing that says Pelor or anything like that. You don't get any very specific. Like there are some things that would probably be quite specific to the intricate detail that comes into some of Pelor's symbology, because it wouldn't just be the sun. There'd be other symbols that come with it. You don't see anything besides the symbol of the sun, but that is Pelor. Pelor is the god of light, the god of the sun, effectively the dawn father. It is very much, these indicate him, but you just don't see any names that state that per se.
Okay. Have you done any like death rites with your father?
They kind of just shake their heads. You looking at his body again, I would say because of your religious nature, the collective religious nature of the party, it does look like he's very slowly starting to sort of like his body's sinking slightly. He's going through the kind of the rigor steps effectively. But looking at him, it doesn't look like any rites have been done. His eyes are closed. There are flowers that were set around him that have started to wither. He is in this sort of fairly ramshackle coffin that looks like it was, it's not pretty, it's not special, but it is a coffin. But no death rites per se. Just preparing him in this way.
Would you like some done? I'll like brush my hair away and show my necklace with the sun on it and be like, my daddy was real good at them and I learned a thing or two.
As you sort of do that, not so subtly.
I mean, I'm doing it on purpose.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So as you kind of do that and pull your hair back slightly and revealing the sort of emblazoned symbol of the sun, you see as Ismark's eyes kind of squint slightly, he says, where did you find that? The symbol of the Morning Lord. Where?
Oh, well, I call him Pelor, but he's the god that my daddy worships. Well, I worship him too, because he's like, the one true, blah, blah. I got pamphlets if you want.
He does actually take interest in the pamphlets. He does. He's sort of curious. He extends his hand out slightly to see them.
This only happens when people have died. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So you hand him one of the pamphlets, and you kind of...
Yeah, my daddy made that. I've been traveling a little bit, trying to spread the word, do some good.
And he flips through it, kind of again, just looking at it, and he sort of seems surprised. He says, "This is... I know you're not from here, but I have not heard of this Pelor. It seems they share a lot in common, but..." He sort of sighs and just hands you the pamphlet back. He says, "He is one of the only 2 gods present in this place."
It's good to have one.
Because of laughs nervously. We know who the other god is, right?
Yeah, he sort of says, there's the Morning Lord and Mother Night. As such, they keep each other in check. But he sort of sighs. Sorry, I do not know. He's the Morning Lord to me, but it seems they must have a lot in common. This Paylor and him.
Sure sounds like it. Would you like me to do some things for your dad?
He sort of nods slowly and says, "Well, that is what I came to ask. It is dangerous for Ireena to be out of the house. We do not know when the devil might strike, but I will need help to move him up to the abbey, or the church, excuse me." And so he sort of, again, he doesn't really gesture anywhere because there is nowhere for you to specifically look, but he sort of indicates the church. He says, "There is a priest there. His name is Donovich. He is troubled, but there's a good man in that mind, and if we could take our father to him in the morning, tomorrow morning, if you are willing, we could give him a proper burial, and he sort of looks at you all again for sort of an indication of any sort of interest in this, and then we will, well, once he is buried and is given the full funeral procession, we wish to make our way west to Valaki. It is the bigger town down into the valley of Barovia, and we hope to keep Ireena safe there. And if you are looking for companionship, we are looking for companionship, and we'll gladly take anything you have to offer. You seem like good people." He sort of smiles, like, again, there's a certain like melancholy in this whole scene, shall we say, but there's like a smile of reassurance that these outsiders, you guys, will have potential to be pleasant individuals.
Yeah.
You do get the sense that throughout this entire time, even mainly in the tavern, there was like a heavy sense of him judging you all, but besides sort of giving a couple of odd glances towards Trundle, he was pretty okay with all of you, despite being sort of these abnormal races, at least as so far as you've seen.
As someone that is also randomly looking at Trundle from time to time, would I have noticed his random looks at Trundle, or is that just pure poor coincidence chancing?
That's just poor coincidence. Go ahead and make an insight check if you'd like.
Do I look different? Maybe.
No, you don't look different per se,
He's
but he's more out of everyone who's there. Like Richter is a bit odd, as Richter is want to be. But
true.
Everyone else has sort of accepted a handshake. You think that although he didn't take any sort of umbrage to it all, any offense from the lack of handshake, there is a sense that he kind of like he reeled back from it very slightly as you didn't accept and kind of grunted at him. And so, of all the people that he's seen, you're the one that he's taken the longest to sort of try and look at and maybe trust. Whereas everyone else, at least in Zadie is an open book. Guzza sits along that line when he's being open. Rhea's a bit quiet, but she seemed to have been honest. And Richter's weird, but has shown interest, has indicated his interest. Whereas
that's true.
Yeah. So that's effectively why. That's
kind
effectively
of in exile, which is why he's not hugely fond of people.
Quite understandably. I'm not. Yeah, it's not a criticism of Trundle.
Oh no, absolutely.
It's just an observation that he probably has been eyeing you a little bit closer just to gauge you.
would be
You are a
surprised.
bit odd looking, a little bit gaunt, and whatnot. So, but yeah, he sort of looks around the room at all of you and says, "But you must be weary and looking for a place to rest. We can have your answer in the morning, but if you have decided now, it would be good to know so we can rise early when the sun," he's got a size, "when the sun is at least somewhat out. It's never not behind cover, but when the outside is bright, we can take our father there." He sort of looks,
Sure, I'm always happy to help good people in need. Or bad people in need. Anyone in need, really.
he's sort of,
Master when they're good.
yeah, he sort of nods and smiles and says, and Ireena kind of smiles as well weakly. He just says, "Well, Ireena will stay here, but early in the morning we may want to check ahead with Donovich to make sure that he is ready to take on such rites. He's having a difficult time, but we will see how he fares." And
Sure. Ireena, that cut hurt? Would you like me to have a look at it at all?
What you pointing towards her neck?
Mm.
She says, she sort of go and make a persuasion check, I suppose. But I mean, she seems hesitant as you say it, regardless.
Ooh.
Oh, that shouldn't have been with advantage.
That's all right. I'm just checking. The first roll was a 6. I think I can't tell. It looks like it's
So
the first
9
one.
altogether.
Yeah, it's 9. It's not great. She does sort of hesitate and pull back slightly, and she says, "You can look at it, but I prefer if you didn't touch it. It is." She seems a bit wary. However, Guzza, as you indicated, when you touched her skin didn't feel cold or anything weird like that. You know, you did put your hand on her hand, just for your reference.
I'll just ask her if it hurts.
She kind of shakes her head.
What if she fell from heaven? I mean, I don't know.
Get out. Yeah, that would be Zadie anyway, right?
That's true.
But
obviously, sorry.
But no, she gestures. She indicates her neck and says, "It doesn't hurt per se, but the memory that surrounds it is still fresh." And,
I bet it sounds just awful.
she says something I would rather forget.
That is fair. I will be.
But she indicates, like, she sort of looks and says, sorry, excuse me. Ismark steps in and says, I must show you up to your rooms. We have plenty of spare rooms in the house now that, well, no one lives here but us anymore. And sort of heads upstairs and basically indicates that you all have separate rooms. You know, there's no sort of sharing. There's no sharing a bed or you know, split rooms, as they do have enough places to sleep. And they sort of indicate where you can go to rest.
I'm just going to, as we go in, I'm just going to again pat Ismark on the shoulder and just be like, and I noticed on the way in, and you know, you mentioned that you guys have been attacked. Do you need people to stay up and keep watch or anything?
He actually he shakes his head slightly and says, "No, it's strange. After our father's passing, we haven't experienced any attacks. It was daily. It was every night that they would claw at the walls, never coming in, but always threatening to do so, keeping us up at night. But when it broke my father's spirit 3 nights ago, they have not been seen since. So I will keep an eye out, but I think it's best." He smiles and chuckles. He said, "You all look very tired." Especially, and he's like looking quite a lot at you. Like, excuse me, Zadie says this. Yeah, you'll find he's just sort of like hobbling along at half speed.
Like these big bags
Just
under
like
her
coughing
arms.
up along.
Yeah, but he sort of just like gestures.
I just ran into a door. It was...
Yeah, unfortunately,
We'll- yeah.
that you're familiar with.
And he sort of gestures towards one of the, like, another door that he hasn't indicated. He says, "We also have clean water if you like to scrub yourselves. It's quite limited, but if you need to clean yourselves up, by all means." And there appears to be a bathroom with like it's kind of like a wooden tub. That is, you know, it's effectively the idea. There's like a couple of buckets around it. The idea is that you would probably sponge in the water, clean yourself up, and sort of take or take a ladle of a bucket and clean yourself with that. That is, you know, we aren't in times with like really fancy stuff. And even in this mansion, the tub, although it looks quite well made, at least the state that they're using it in now is effectively kind of like a take your own piece of water and clean yourself with that rather than dirtying the water that you have. But they sort of gesture to that, indicate for all the rooms for you to sleep in, and sort of, unless anyone wants to do anything specific, bid you adieu and sort of say, "We'll see you in the morning. Have any of you made a decision?" And he looks kind of tentatively, but not too expectantly.
No, I
And
think
you
rest
said it-
would be in our best interest.
I agree. And you said the washroom was just through here, and I sort of point to where he was pointing.
Yeah, there's a little candle in there that sort of lights it up quite nicely.
What they're saying is, of course, we'll help. Don't worry about it.
He sort of chuckles and says, "I appreciate that, Zadie. It is not you I feel I need to convince. It is all of you."
No, they'll do what I say.
But yeah, he smiles and says,
For now.
Yeah. He smiles and says,
For now, you will.
"Yeah, it means more than you know. Thank you." And
He's
he's
gonna start unbusting a chainmail. How much does it mean? Sorry.
Yeah, and he heads back downstairs to talk with Ireena, who's still down there. She's sort of sitting in the room with her father, just kind of watching, and just you see her like when you do all sort of head upstairs. She kind of, you do faintly hear, those of you who are quite perceptive, shall we say, you do faintly hear like a bit of a sobbing just downstairs as he's sort of talking with you all, and as he sort of bids you adieu, he kind of darts back downstairs to check on her.
Is that Ireena sobbing?
Yeah, downstairs. Yeah,
You're
not
gonna go
like a
down?
low whale, not a whale or anything like that.
Comfort her.
Yeah.
How many
She's
rooms
got her
are
brother.
Oh,
Do you want to just join in what's going on down there? They're
I'd
not
like to
blood
wash
related,
first,
so.
please.
You guys are sick. You guys are sick. So you all head to bed.
Everyone doesn't.
How many rooms are there?
There's enough rooms that everyone has their own room. Effectively,
Okay.
you're probably on like 2 separate floors. There's one room which appears to be, sorry, 2 rooms which appear
I
to be
discard my
their
rooms
rooms.
with Gaza.
And there appear to be, in fact, you probably would be in the same room. Some of you. There's like essentially what would have been a servant's quarters.
I will give up my room for Trundle, and I'll share it with Ireena if I have to. That's absolutely fine. I don't mind.
They have their own rooms, thanks. So I mean, I'd say probably.
Shots fired.
Actually, for ease of purpose, I'll say you're
You're
probably
not the bottom half of the list.
You're probably split. You're probably split. There'll probably be
Oh.
3 people in the old servants' quarters and 2 people in individual rooms.
I'll take an individual room, unless someone wants to convince me otherwise.
Sure.
I trust no one wants to share with me anyway.
I'll take an individual room.
No, you
Trundle
won't.
wouldn't mind.
What? What do you think I'm going to do?
Zadie grabs you and
Oh,
sort of
we're
drags
running
you
out of
towards
rooms
the.
here, buddy.
Don't
Seems
get
like I might have to share
I
one.
want my own room.
No, we have to pray.
Yeah. So Zadie grabs you and practically, like by the ear, practically just drags you over to the servants' quarters room.
Nice
Pillow
room.
fight.
Yeah.
I feel like the werewolf needs his own room.
You don't know. You don't know. Not a werewolf.
The
It's just a weird-looking dude.
What?
Just a normal guy.
I just
Yeah.
every
So-
day
so who's
regular normal
So who's got their own rooms? Richter's basically stepped off quietly and just sort of
Yep.
made one his own. They are
I
nice
go on
and
the
built.
roof and howl for no reason. Sniffing everything.
There is no roof. You slide off the tiles, fall, and break your neck and die.
Alright,
No.
new character.
Yeah, new character. You are now Ismark. No. So who's got their own rooms?
Oh,
Richter's got.
wait, I killed myself, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. So Richter's got one room. Who's in the other single room?
I think Trundle called it.
Okay, Trundle. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So Trundle and Richter, you have your own rooms. The rest of you are sort of bunched into this one room. Again, all the rooms have like small desks, like writing desks. You're all sort of like, again, decant your bags and your whatnot, and for the first time in a little while, you're actually able to like lie in a comfortable, non-blood-stained bed and not have the crying of a baby or what sounds like undead slamming against your door interrupt your sleep.
Before I go to sleep, I'd like to spend a little time with the cloak that came out of that chest.
Okay.
Please?
Okay. So as you
This is why we're sharing a room.
I'm waiting for you to fall asleep because
Okay, so
you're exhausted.
bear with
you don't
me.
know what's going on.
So as
I
you-
can
Yes,
detect
with my
magic,
eyes
I've
are-
realised.
Oh, you can.
I can.
Would you like to? As you.
I would love to if I met with.
Oh, you made aware.
I don't know. Does Rhea know that I can? Probably not. I
I'd
think I'll
say
show
if
an
you
interest. Sure.
If you
Yeah.
haven't used it. Oh, you have shown.
If she's looking at it.
Okay.
No.
You
If she's
do
showing,
get
if she's looking like.
You do get a magical aura coming. So, Guzza, as you cast detect magic, unfortunately, I believe it has verbal components, so it is obvious you're casting something. It doesn't seem ominous or evil or anything, but you do cast a spell. You do get a magical like aura from it. I will need to think about what this would pertain to, what school of magic. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to check something here briefly.
There's no one to read.
So I would say it probably has an aura of abjuration magic to it. I'm going to double check that against something else. But I would say it would probably have abjuration magic. Yeah, abjuration for sure. It seems to. And if do you know what that means? Or
As someone that has protection from evil and good and abjuration spell and shield of health, would Guzza know that sort of? So Shield
Generally
of Faith.
speaking,
You guys know what that meant?
generally speaking, Shield of
I'm happy
Faith
to go.
covers protective spells. They can be barriers. That can be things that stop magic and stop physical things. Things that it can also be the removal of something from one plane to another. But generally speaking, the whole that is a small part of it. Abjuration covers protective spells, protective magic. This seems to have protective magic imbued within it. And I'm not sure, let me just check the wording of detect magic, but I believe, I don't want to get too nitty gritty into it, but I don't believe you, unlike identify, which is purely like you find out everything about this item, you just indicate you just get the sense of what type of magic it is. That's all you get. So you just get the abjuration ping from it.
I'm happy if anyone here is looking to seek more protection, so carry on looking at it.
Sure. So you spend the equivalent of a short rest. I mean, again, it feeds into the long rest. So as everyone else is sort of getting themselves in bed, you spend a bit of time with the cloak. You bear with me, I'm just teabagging my tea. This, as you have in front of you, this cloak that sits in your lap, is a cloak of protection. It's very finely crafted. It requires attunement, which you can do so over this long rest. But when you have it equipped, you gain a +1 bonus to AC and saving throws whilst equipped. So, assuming that you're going to attune to this, being that you are looking at it, you can tell the others what it is if you so please.
You should give it to me. I don't have enough AC.
Me neither.
You have higher than me. So.
12 AC.
They are joking. This is
saying 12.
Breathe in, buddy. Breathe in.
I need 20 AC.
Me too.
So effectively, it gives you +1 to bonus AC and saving throws. The AC is easy to apply on Roll20. We'll deal with the saving throw stuff at the end, but if you ever have to make a saving throw for the rest of this session, we will just remember it. Remember that you have the +1 as you attune to the cloak. However, that's what's going on in your room as the three of you fall asleep in there. The two holy people and Rhea. Richter, what are you up to?
Yes. Is there like a desk nearby or anything?
There is. There in both of the finer rooms. There are like nice bureaus, like writing desks.
Okay.
In the servants' quarters, there's like a more straightforward, simple dresser, kind of wooden platform desk kind of thing.
Okay. I want to unpack my my phlebotomy kit onto the desk and unpack my vials.
And as you sort of fold them out again, there's the sort of there's some vials filled with sort of bloods that you have gathered. There's also several needles of varying sizes, various syringes of various sizes as well.
Okay, I want to take a syringe adequate for what I'm about to use it for, and then I want to uncork the vial of Zadie's blood that I've had for quite some time.
Yep.
Cool.
And then I want to draw the blood out of the vial.
Yep.
Cool.
And then I want to inject it into myself.
Okay.
Cool.
So as you sort of again gets a bit drug usury, but as you sort of get the tourniquet on and you sort of manage to get your veins.
Yeah, wrap up my cloak on it.
Exactly. Yeah, you just tighten it up and sort of less like belt, more just tighten the cloak. Again, you having blue skin as a tiefling, your sort of veins will show up more sort of purple than red as they do on humans. So as you get your veins ready, you can kind of see them. It's not necessarily more clearly, but they are more distinct in the sort of candlelight. And you sort of get the vial of Zadie's blood. You draw a small amount of it in, and you sort of inject it into yourself. Now I'd like you to make a Constitution saving throw, please.
Okay.
Ooh.
14.
14's good enough. So as you inject the blood again, of all the bloods, effectively you could inject into yourself as a tiefling, a being that is somewhat tied to the fiends, to the devils of the world, to inject to impart celestial blood into your veins is a dangerous thing. It's like I'm trying to think of an example. I can't think of a good example, but it's like it's almost like good meets evil. And although you as a tiefling are not inherently evil, there is the kind of the devilish nature, the kind of it doesn't actually tend so much towards chaos. It really doesn't. It can do, but devils are often quite lawful in their evil. Yeah. However, as you inject it, you feel this kind of burning sensation, as you often would when injecting a foreign body into your arm. It sort of surges across your arm, and you feel this kind of like tingling, this pain. It's kind of like an itch within your skin, but you bear with it. You kind of grip your fist tightly, and you can feel the blood kind of pulsing through your hands and through your arm. And you notice this very faint sort of sparkle, just like kind of, again, just emanate ever so slightly. It's faint, but it sort of, your hand briefly and your arm briefly glow as it sort of runs through you, and it sort of runs into your veins. You feel your eyes illuminate slightly. It doesn't provide you with dark vision or anything like that. But as you sort of stomach it and you're able to withhold any sort of negative reaction to it as the kind of the burning sensation subsides, you do feel this kind of slight warmth within. So effectively what you gain is that, and it does actually feed somewhat into your background as well, or not your background, but you as a divine soul sorcerer. In that, I believe Asimars have an ability called Healing Hands. Okay? Yep. So what that allows you to do, this is just for a mechanical description so you know how it functions.
Okay.
And what an Asimar can do is once per long rest, I believe it is, they use an action to place their hand on someone, and they will heal equal to their level. So I believe it's your level? Do you know if that's correct? Okay, so you'll heal 3. Yeah. So you get this as a one-time thing. As the blood sort of pulses in, you use up pretty much all the blood you have in order to get the effect to really proc, and it kind of burns through. It does leave you kind of feeling a little bit lightheaded and dizzy as you fall asleep to bed, and it kind of almost intoxicates you very faintly. Not too dissimilar from the kind of bloodborne kind of like, yes, the blood of the hunt kind of thing. So, but it does bring you to sleep, and for the next day, it will run out after your next long rest.
Can I before I fall asleep, can I make notes of it briefly in like a small pocketbook?
Of course, yeah. It doesn't intoxicate you to the point at which you're delirious or like super high, but it does kind of like shake your mind slightly. Again, there is almost like a battle between the blood at first before your body kind of accepts it, and it kind of courses through your veins. So yeah, I mean, again, if you'd rolled lower on the Constitution save, you'd probably have some negative effects that come with it.
Okay.
This is all sort of a little bit of homebrew stuff, so anyone watching, do bear with us. We're still kind of hashing it out, figuring it out, but I think there's some really cool things that can come from it. So yeah,
you get a free 9th level spell.
Yeah, you get Wish. A deck of many things appears in front of so you drift off to sleep. All of you manage to get some sleep. Is the only person I haven't asked, I suppose, would be Trundle, as the others were all in that room. Are you doing anything before you go to bed?
If there's any sort of reflective surface or perhaps even a mirror, I'd like to check out the wound on my back and see how it's healing. But other than that, I would probably just promptly pass out and be absolutely knackered.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So in this room, as this room is a room designed for a kind of a guest or another family member that isn't in the house, there are mirrors. There is a large mirror on one of the walls, sort of like a floor to ceiling kind of deal. And as you sort of undress, get yourself ready for bed, you check out the big scrape mark that ran across your back as you were sort of separated from the others in the mists arriving in Barovia. It's healed, but it hasn't healed. There's no bleeding. There's no scabbing per se, but it's very quickly formed into what is essentially a scar. The scar is 4 large claw marks dragged right down your back. There's almost the inclination of the 5th from like a, it's almost like a prehensile. Is it prehensile? Is that the term? Like thumbnail from as if it was sort of less a paw, more a hand that kind of just run across your back, and it's left effectively a very quick forming scar, and it has a tingle to it. As you stare at it, it kind of burns slightly. It doesn't feel great. But
is there any silvered object in the room?
No, probably not actually. Unfortunately not. There's no silver in the room per se, but you do feel this kind of as you kind of stare outside, as you see the moon kind of, or at least the light of the moon, you probably don't see it directly, sort of just spilling into the window ever so slightly. You get this kind of like this twitching urge. It doesn't ride into anything more than that, but you get this kind of this itch, this unsettling feeling.
Cool.
And you're aware that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon.
Awesome.
Cool.
And then I'll take that all to sleep.
Okay. So as you all head to bed, as you all drift off to sleep,
Everyone make initiative rolls.
Yeah! Was it Ancient Blue Dragon? That was the one. No.
Everyone start writing your new characters. 'Cause you're dead.
Why not? So, as sleep takes you all in this house, this for once not a crazy weird house, just a house, a mansion of sorts. You all drift off to sleep, and you all feel like you have dreams. Should I say dreams? Probably bordering closer on nightmares. Rhea.
Again?
Rhea.
Mm-hmm.
You ache all over as you find yourself falling in darkness, but only for a brief moment, as you suddenly find yourself slammed. As you look at your hands as bound at either side, as you find yourself in a pillory, as a riotous crowd jeers and roars at you in your defenseless stance, you're trapped there. Rotten fruit, mud piles, and worse, sharper, blunter objects are sort of hurled at you, sort of bashing and beating you, making aching worse, and somewhat muddling your thoughts as you find yourself cracked over the head by something heavy and blunt. A sudden flash brings you onto a wooden platform, staring at a sea of faces, this time completely silent. As they peer back at you, as you read out your final judgment, you find yourself still bound. In much the same way, but there is a looming presence. A faceless juggernaut that you can just about make out at your shoulder, a bladed scythe resting in his thick, heavy-set hands. Further words are read out, but your mind is swimming too much to focus on exactly what's being said, and you feel the sweat kind of pooling on your forehead as it faces the ground. Just as you see the stage beneath you, that you feel yourself drawing your last breaths. You hear a sort of a heft to your left, this as you try and scream, but your breath is gone, and you jerk upright in your cot, trembling as light sort of spills in from the window. It's morning, and your head's still thankfully attached, but you do shake the sort of the deep, dark thoughts you experience out of your mind after taking a few deep breaths, despite not needing to breathe, as you prepare for the day ahead. Trundle. You find yourself in a murky place before you feel as you press your childlike hand against a murky window. So staring out at this town you feel like you knew well, like you maybe grew up in. You're young, innocent, unmarked by the darkness that has come with age. Or you were until this day, or so it feels. You're not quite sure. This is in a dream state, you just can't place it. You look out from the windows, you see townhouses ablaze, screams rising against the cold of the night. But so you just stand watching helplessly as these kind of monstrosities just tear from the houses, just barreling forward, running through, ripping the doors open and dragging people away into the darkness of the night. You blink, and you find yourself alone in a darkened room. Your adult self once more, but you find yourself bound, with leather straps on a sort of a stretcher, a chair of sorts. As you just sort of stretch against these restraints. No one's around. This feels like it's your moment to get out, to break free, to cast off these shackles, straining so hard, so vigorously that your hands kind of turn a deep purple as the blood just cuts off from them entirely. But the restraints don't budge, and you hear the creak of the door as a figure that's tormented you over these days, these weeks, these seeming months slides in to stand over you in the darkness. Your torment continues. You awaken in a cold sweat, a brief searing pain emanating from the wound on your back, as if it was almost freshly opened in your sleep, but you feel around. Your sheets are clean. The light crawls in from the room to tell you it's now morning. And you don't recall these memories in your life whatsoever, but you kind of doubt your own memory, because it all felt so real. Zadie.
I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Zadie. With the sun comes warmth. With warmth comes life, and with life comes hope. This is about one of the basic principles your father your father's taught you in your time as a pupil of his in your youth and in your adolescence. Surely as the sun sets in the evening, so it shall once more rise again in the morning, taking its place among the skies as the beacon that all those on the surface look up to for guidance, energy, and in your case, faith. But a day comes when the moon has passed over you, and you rise in the morning to see no light. The land is dark, it's cold, it's somewhat barren. Fear ripples out amongst your congregation. This must be a test, no? The faithful shall protect the weak, and eventually the darkness will pass.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
And as you pray for hours that the sun will return, The Peddler has not forsaken you. You see a glimmer of light. Our prayer is answered. Hooray! A cheer comes out from the congregation. We just believe in him and he will come through. But something's wrong.
Oh.
The sun rises a sickly orange and burning into a deep shade of red and casting a gloom across the land. Something's really wrong. Sun rises higher and higher, reaching a pinnacle in the sky over a matter of seconds, before bursting into glimmering fragments, blinding you. You find yourself staggering backwards, feeling the wall behind you, but to find nothing, you see no one. The very light you once placed your faith in has left you unable to help yourself, let alone others, and your world falls forever dark. Richter.
Yes.
A normal working day in the city of Waterdeep passes uneventfully. You treat your patients, you see a couple of regulars, cure a few illnesses with the aid of both magic and more traditional methods. But every person who visits you looks at you with increasingly uneasily, from looks of doubt to stares of pure unadulterated fear, almost locking themselves in place until you finish your handiwork. And, of course, took a sample or two from those with more interesting ailments or those of more exotic dispositions. What they don't know won't hurt them, surely. Surely. So as you close up shop in the evening and walk across town to make your way home, screams slowly hit the air as people pull themselves away from you, aghast as you somewhat lumber through the side streets. Your gait shifts from a fairly uneventful walk to a heavy stumbling plod as you find yourself needing to support yourself on more than one occasion on walls and gates nearby, and the screams sort of grow louder and run further and faster. By the time you reach your doorstep, you're unable even to fit through the door and end up breaking through the frame just to get indoors. You stop, briefly pause and look up as you see yourself in the mirror. A grotesque bloated mess, not even recognizable as a tiefling, nor even yourself. But you must continue. It drives you. It eats away at you. You wake fairly normally, this dream shaking you ever so slightly, but find yourself musing upon its contents more than the others. And Guzza. As sleep takes you, you actually lie peacefully for a while. Thoughts dance playfully among fields of grain under a golden sun, placing a smile upon your face. Jaunty would be proud. You feel as age has advanced you to your senior years, the thin grey hair sprouting beneath a simple straw hat. But you look upon this simple life you now lead, long after years of adventuring and wielding the scythe of justice has passed by. But of course all is not well. The sky darkens, crops wither and die at your feet. Your vision pulls away and you see in the centre of a world ridden with pain and suffering, all stemming from beneath your feet.
Oh.
Your god's forsaken you, or so you feel. And as you fall to your knees in despair, you glance down through anguish and pain and tears. You see one single flower blossom beneath your feet. One solitary snowdrop blooms that looks up at you. The blank canvas of its petals painting a picture in your mind that cannot be quelled. You find yourself stumbling up in the Kolyanovich manor, sort of pushing across the room and pushing to the small desk in this room in a haze and slamming down paper and ink as you jot down wisdom that your mind feels it has gained. As you snap out of your haze in the night and you come to your senses, the field's replaced with the moonlit room. You look at the paper, currently blank despite your scribblings. But as the moon slowly lights up the page, words gleam brightly back at your eyes. Kindle the light. Preserve your own light. And then just in the largest letters of them all, be the light. You ponder on this for a while, but it is still the middle of the night as you shakily climb back into bed, making sure you haven't disturbed the others, and dwelling on this as the rest of your night is actually somewhat peaceful. And as you all awaken in the morning, you all sort of look at each other and there's a sense you've all rested, you've all had a long rest, you'll regain your hit points, you regain your spell slots, you regain half your hit dice rounded down, so you do only regain 1 hit dice. But there is a sense of sort of foreboding amongst all of you. It's not palpable, it's not any sort of there's no distrust or anything, but you all get the sense that your nights were, you got a good rest, but they were still restless in a way.
Am I not exhausted anymore?
I will say for the purposes of this, both points of exhaustion are gone.
Oh, awesome.
Yay. awake.
If I could possibly maybe have woken up before the other people in the room with
well,
me.
that's the thing. You snap up
Yeah.
awake. You
Yeah.
notice that although Zadie sort of looks like she's sort of maybe got a bit of a cold sweat, Guzza gets himself up normally in the morning.
Right, and I'm not feeling good either. Okay,
I mean,
I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna get up, and I'm gonna go and find the kitchen.
sure. You head downstairs as you'd expect the kitchen to be down there. There are several doors leading off this main sort of wide hallway, but Ismark is already up and he's sort of strapped his I believe it's leathers on. If you bear with me, I do just want to get that up. So whilst I think about it, I'm going to bring him up so I can see him. Oh, there he is. I knew I had him somewhere. In fact, so he actually puts on heavier armor at this point. He's usually like seemingly wearing light leathers, or he was in the tavern. But at this point, as he's sort of strapping himself up, ready to basically do this task, he's put on like, although it lies under a thick, heavy coat, you see layers of splint armor. It's quite heavy set, all bound on leather. These strips of metal that sort of shift and crease slightly as he moves. And he sort of sees you come down the stairs and goes, "Good morning. How was your sleep?"
I have had better, but I have also had worse. Well, not many, I must say.
He sort of nods and says,
But
yeah,
but sorry, go on.
No, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry for that. This land does strange things to people, but
Ah.
you will, in time, hopefully adjust.
I am flexible, I guess. But I find a good meal usually helps. Do you mind if I arrange something in the kitchen?
He nods and says, "We don't have much to work with, but by all means."
I'm used to not having much to work with. I will see what I can do.
Sure. He
Be good
leads,
for everybody.
yeah, he leads you into the kind of the back right door from the entrance, which does lead into there's a smaller dining area, kind of like a kitchenette in a way. There is decent enough space that you'd expect servants to have worked here at some point. There still seems to be it seems like they are still cooking and eating here, but it looks like whatever they've been eating has been pretty basic, or whatever they've been sort of putting together hasn't been most extravagant. As you'd probably imagine, this town doesn't have too much going for it. But he sort of lets you have the lay of the land. What are you looking to make, or are you just seeing what you've got?
I'll see what we've got, and I just want to put together a really sort of hearty, wholesome cooked breakfast. Lots of scrambled eggs and hash browns. If I can mash up the potato and the onions together, and
I'll say
lots of good stuff.
I'll say you don't need to make a check for this. You do find a decent amount of stuff. No meats. There's no meat in this place. Doesn't seem like an active no meat. It's just they don't have any. You find some bread, sort of fairly freshly baked. You come across again. There are enough eggs to cook for most of you. It'd be a bit sparse, but you do what you can. And there's some onions and some potatoes and whatnot. So there are quite a lot of root vegetables, and you're able to chuck those together. Go ahead and make a cooking utensils roll, please. And I think we didn't actually settle on what you're using for this, so we can go for. I don't know. I think it's kind of wisdom more than intelligence. I feel. I think it's more that scale of things. But I'll say you can use either. I'll say you can use either for the one is more like just knowing how to do it without needing to know the scientific things behind it. The other is more like you are more attuned with it. So if you want to just go ahead and make a proficiency based intelligence check, you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah.
I think intelligence is your better stat. I think.
Yes, I will use that if I.
I love how this party is very perceptive besides the rogue, and the rogue is the only smart one. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
We're
so
all
backwards.
dumb.
It's so backwards.
It is.
Nine's not great. I mean,
No.
you find that quite a lot of the onions and some of the potatoes they're on the turn. Like, you're able to make something out of them, but there's like a slight almost tang sourness to them that you realize is probably you've got it. It's all you've got. You work with it and you do an okay job, but yeah, you are relatively limited what you have. So it's all like carbs, and there's not too much flavor to it. It's not terrible. It's just not like this is not your masterpiece. This is not your pièce de résistance. If you had more time or whatever, as the others start to make their ways downstairs and sort of you all sort of head down unless otherwise specifying.
Okay. As I hear them coming down, I'm going to mage hand a plate of whatever I'm doing just out the door towards them. And just shout through, take a plate, sit down, eat.
Are you making it invisible or just?
I'll just make. Yeah, the hand's going to be invisible.
Okay. So this platter just floats out. You all sort of see it floating out. There's a brief moment of like ah, and then you sort of see behind it, just with her hand sort of extended out, this platter sort of floating out as Rhea kind of finishes off working what she's looking at. It looks edible. It looks not bad. It doesn't smell terrible or anything, but it doesn't look like the most appealing meal. It's like beige, effectively. There's hash browns. There are eggs. That's about it. There's bread. Toast, shall we say? Because they would have a way to heat it. But yeah, it's relatively limited, unfortunately.
Yeah, funny.
I'll pack up my things and leave the room and venture towards this delightful smell.
Sure. And
okay, as I wake up, I would have almost automatically like used the light spell on my pendant, but make it kind of this warm sort of dawn light. So there's this light coming off my pendant, just sort of like.
Sure. It's still quite bright, but it's like kind of like that. Yeah, it's like what Flux does for your monitor. It's more like that orangey, warmthy glow. Very nice, and it does glow. It's not blinding to look at Zadie, in that regard. But I mean, it does create a sort of a nice warm illumination in this place that is otherwise lit by fairly scantily by candles. And again, although it kind of warms the place up, the windows are still boarded. The house is still fairly barren. Besides that. I will say, this is probably something that pertains more to Rhea, and you've been up for a little bit longer than the others. Looking around the house, there are a few bits of there are nice-looking candlesticks. There are bits of wealth within this house that are kind of not discarded, but are just left untended in some of the other rooms. And they do appear to be sort of at least gold-plated. Just so you're aware. I don't want to tempt you or anything, but so you're aware that these things exist.
Yep, I'm aware.
Cool.
Good.
But you will
untouched.
Yeah.
So far.
Untouched.
So far.
So you.
That's part of the reason I'm cooking. Keep itchy fingers. And...
Keep them busy. Yeah, the devil's hands are idle playthings, right? So you go ahead and sit down, and again, there's enough space in this big place to find a place where you can all congregate and talk. And as you're sort of eating, and Ismark sort of compliments the food, not like a glowing review, but he's like, "Oh, thank you very much," and sort of starts tucking himself in. Ireena makes her way downstairs as well. She looks rather well geared with her sort of breastplate on as well, a sword at her side. But Ismark sort of looks at her and says, "You cannot come out. You know that." She's like, "I know. I'm getting ready to go when Father has been buried." And he sort of nods. Yes.
Do you want someone to stay with her while we go? Because I found Guzzer to be like quite strong and capable, so he could stay with her while we all go.
Ismark looks at you and sort of he sort of like waves it over, and Ireena just sort of shakes her head and says, "I will be fine on my own. Thank you. I can defend myself if I need to, and if all else fails, I can come running. But they haven't come into the house so far, and they haven't been here in 3 days. I think it will be unlikely that they will come, but I appreciate the offer nonetheless. I would prefer just to make sure that Father finds his way into the afterlife, or at least whatever kind of afterlife this place has." And she sort of, effectively declines the offer. But Ismark looks at you, all of you, and sort of again over sort of a mouthful of food, and sort of says, "Are you all ready to go in say 5-10 minutes?"
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
I think
Sure. Sorry.
He sort of looks
I'm really
at-
sorry.
Go
I'm
on.
really sorry. I remember something that's just completely sprang out of mind out of nowhere is that at the end of the last game we got some interesting loot which we never discussed. One of the things was a bull lamp, which I think was like a big lamp which only
Bullseye
shot.
lantern, yeah.
Bullseye. Thank you,
Yeah,
Scary.
so
Bullseye
you
lantern.
should be able to find it in items, I believe. So if you search for a bullseye lantern, you should be able to even drag it into your invent and read it there. just to take effectively though. Effectively, I believe a bullseye lantern. It's one of those kind of. It's boxy on 3 sides and has like a cone on one side, and it funnels the light really brightly in that one direction. So
would you think it is possible for such a thing to rest on my scythe as I'm carrying it?
Cool.
I'd be able to make a small thing, like a little hook, just at the back of it.
You'd have to make a hook for it. You don't have that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Theoretically, sure, you'd be able to hold it like a gravekeeper or something. But yeah, I mean, for the time being, it's the kind of thing that, as adventurers, you're able to kind of like hook lanterns onto your belt. It's a bit clunky, but you can move without it really impeding you at all. But yeah, you're able to do that. But not right now for the.
No, fine. Thank you. Continue. Cheers.
Cool. That's all right. So Ismark says, perhaps we should go see Donovich first, or, I mean, we can go now, but I don't know what state he will be in. He spends most of his days praying.
Onwards. Let us press onwards.
He sort of nods. He says, "Okay, if you're all ready," and he sort of finishes eating effectively, and sort of hugs Ireena and says, "I will be you'll be back in no time at all." Says, and sort of looks across to their father. And says, and sort of just silently kind of just gestures, and she goes over. You see her kind of like lay her head on his chest again, sort of like shaking slightly, but she comes back, composes herself after a brief moment of sort of saying her goodbyes, and Ismark goes to the head of where his father is and sort of gestures for I would probably say Guzza and Zadie, probably the sort of heavier, like stronger individuals, to like, please help me carry this.
Sure. So just before I do that, I'm just going to go up to Ireena and just go, would you like to put a lock of your hair with your dad? I heard that can help with them, like taking your goodness with them.
Go ahead and make a persuasion check. Why not?
A deception.
Words.
Yeah. I mean, if she's wrong or lying, I don't think Zadie knows. Yeah.
That was not good.
Yeah, she's taken back a bit. She sort of like holds her head. She says, "No, I think it's best we bury him as he is."
Okay, that's fine.
And again, there's like the kind of sad look on her face, but you see her kind of wringing her hands quite a bit, that she can't sort of, she seems worried, stressed out a little bit. But before you leave, as they're sort of preparing to pick this up, Ismark sort of says, "So we take our father there, we get him buried, and then, well, like I said, it is our intention to, if time permitting, head straight to Vallaki." And this is for your information, spelled Vallaki. It's our intention to head straight to Vallaki. If you will accompany us, it would be of the utmost appreciation. But this is what you're doing now is more than I could appreciate, more than I can ask for. But we want to take Ireena to somewhere safe, somewhere away from here, out of and sort of gestures through one of the tiny cracks through the windows, out of sight of that, and sort of you glean he's pointing towards the huge castle.
You're sure it's okay to leave her on her?
He says, "I have done so in the past, like last night for sure, for example."
What do you think would happen to her if she set foot outside of here? Do you think it would draw him here, or?
He shrugs and just says, I honestly don't know. I truly don't know quite what he would do, but I would rather not find out. At least if we head fast enough, I think he might not see it coming. He has eyes everywhere. He is the land.
Okay.
And he sort of stomachs the words. He says this without sort of without trying to upset Ireena. He says, "And her being here has not exactly stopped him anyway. I don't think what he might do if he comes a third time and wheels his way through. Anyway."
I could keep him, perhaps, from trying to get in the house, sort of.
He looks at you with like this kind of deadpan. like, no, you won't. Effectively.
Oh
like,
no! Oh no! I don't mean. I mean, I could make him think that Ireena is with us. I think.
Anything you can do to help, but I would prefer that there are more people with her than there are without. He is a...
No. I would still come with you, but I can make myself look like her, and then he will not attack the house because he will think she is with us.
He looks down at the floor and looks back at you and just says, "I don't think that would work."
No, you don't.
He is practically a god here. He will see through anything like that.
If you say so, but it was
It's
just
not.
a
It
thought.
won't hurt to try, but don't expect for a minute that he will be.
You know
He sort of
him
just tails
better
off.
than I do, so.
I wish I didn't. But he sort of nods. He says, and gestures to his father's coffin. He just goes, "Are you ready?" And he sort of and hefts sort of father up to sort of like shoulder height, and effectively pallbearers like the coffin out. Again, puts the lid on. Again, it is pretty ramshackle. There's no nameplate. There's no fancy crafting. It seems to be made of like broken tables. And you can see down the far end of this room, there are like a couple of sort of broken table legs that obviously haven't been used in the building of this thing. But sort of starts hefting out. So who's carrying? Out of an idea, I'd say it'd probably be 4 people total, and his Mark is obviously carrying it himself. That's 1, 2. I can't see you guys because this monitor is fucked.
It's really not great.
Okay, so Trundle, you take it as well. So there's like one of you on either side, one of you at the front and one at you at the back. And as you start sort of proceeding out of here with Rhea and Richter sort of flanking as well.
Okay, I'm just gonna like call Rhea over to me while we're carrying it.
Mm-hmm. It's not too heavy for
I've got my fancy new cloak on, my hood up as well.
Mm-hmm.
You look super cute.
Thank you.
I just want to say I think it was amazing that you offered to put yourself at risk like that. See, that's what I knew I saw in you. You're great.
Is
I
that
knew you were
what I
gonna...
was doing?
I mean,
Oh
I
shit,
think
I
so.
didn't mean to do that. I'm kidding. It was just a thought. I thought that, yeah, I don't know.
That's because you got good inside you.
You think so?
I think so.
I did manage not to steal anything. I thought you'd
Well
be proud
done.
of that.
I can't clap because I'm holding a corpse, but, but well done.
I'll clap myself for you, yes. Yes, it was hard, so that's why I cook. So that's
I'm
I
so
don't.
proud. Yeah, and that was delicious as well. Thank you so
it
much.
wasn't my best. I do what I can with what I have, and
Oh, it was great. I had a lovely breakfast.
well, maybe another time I make you something even better.
Okay. So as you have this discussion about breakfast and sort of chummy it up a bit, as you step outside into the cold, kind of brisk morning air, it is pretty misty. Not so much, foggy. It's not so much the thick mists that you saw before. It's more again the sky. It's still fairly early morning. The sky is overcast, and there is a kind of a curling mist that hangs in the air. And as you look out, sort of off in the direction where you'd expect to see that kind of monolithic castle off in the distance, there's just the fog obscures it, the mist obscures it, and it's not out. It's out of view effectively. Your kind of vision's limited to maybe a couple of 100 feet, which, to be honest, would if for scale of this map that you guys can see, each square is about 40 feet. So you know you can probably see to the crossroads from the front of the house before the fog is just kind of too dense to really make out anything beyond like a dark, building here or there. But you sort of march through the streets, and again the same cry echoes out from Mary's house. It's kind of the same whimper. Her voice sounds hoarse, but she continues to just cry as you make your way through town. And those of you who aren't carrying the coffin, go ahead and make perception checks, please.
Oh, okay.
Oh, ow.
I could.
You always do well.
Nope. My chickens are coming home to roost now.
Yeah, you got that one and that 5. Not so pretty. That's the nat 20.
Not 20.
So, Richter, you're kind of
Hey, well done, Rose.
still dwelling over the night
Yeah,
before, musing on it.
I'm still reeling a little.
Yeah, you're still sort of tingling. But you, Rhea, as you're sort of walking along, you just hear off in the distance, sort of to the east, as the crying there's a brief pause in the crying, you do hear the sound of like what sounds like a cart just rolling through in the far distance of town. It's nothing of great note, but you just notice the sort of the sound of like a cart sort of creaking, or the sound of cart wheels sort of just and then kind of over cobblestones. It sounds like it's moving very slowly. It doesn't sound like it's sort of someone on a horseback or anything like that. It just sounds like a cart that's slowly trundling through the east side of town. But that's all you hear. It's nothing that sort of draws your attention specifically. You just notice it. And as you continue, and again the fog is too thick to really notice anything. And as you continue up, the crying continues. You see one person sort of near a house that isn't boarded up on the outside, just sort of cleaning their boots off and then stepping inside. But you make your way sort of northwest as Mark leads the way. He seems to be kind of marching. There's like a certain briskness to it, but there's also a certain sense that he doesn't want to rush this. That he just wants to make his way there sensibly. And as you kind of rise up the hilltop towards this probably one of the largest buildings in town alongside the tavern, you see this church sitting on the hillside above the the northwest side of town. Right hand side. It's not even on the right hand side. And it appears sort of this. It's in disrepair in some sense. The roof is sagging. From this angle, you can't even tell if it's even complete on one side. But it's got scratch marks all over the walls. It's been assaulted by evil for probably a long time, as there's just stones are scraped. Some stones are missing entirely. The doors sort of are sort of hanging open. They're just open effectively, but they're hanging there, and you see a bell tower at the back of it rising another sort of 20 or so feet above the rest of the roofs. You do see flickering light within the doorway, and Ismark seems to be leading directly to the stairs on the way up to the front of this place. But you just see flickering light coming from within.
In the case of us needing to be in an order, I'd like to place myself as near the front as possible.
I would say based off of where people would have been, I think you would be on one side of the coffin. You're still sort of supporting it, but effectively, I was thinking.
Oh yeah, understood. Yeah, sorry.
Ismark would probably be at the front, and Guzzer at the back end. You're on one side, Zadie's on the other, and Richter and Ray, you're pretty free to kind of move around. But
also on Trundle's side.
Mm-hmm. But as you make your way, this does open up. These doors are kind of still swinging open. Sorry, my keyboard lights up every time someone donates or something, so I do see it occasionally. Apologies. It's a little bit distracting, but it's totally fine. Thank you. So, as you see the doors that are particularly covered in scratch marks and almost like one side of one of the doors has just been burnt, but thankfully the door's thick enough that it hasn't really burnt through in the past. It opens wide into this kind of 10-foot wide, 20-foot long hallway that leads to a brightly lit chapel. The hall itself is fairly unlit and is a bit dingy and smells kind of mold. There's doors, 2 on each side, that are all shut, that seem to lead to adjacent chambers. But you see immediately the state of the chapel. It is in effectively disrepair heavily. There's debris scattered around the left-hand side that you can kind of see from where you stand in the doorway, as Ismark kind of stops and sighs and keeps coming in. And it's like most of the pews are just shattered and broken on that side. You see a figure crouching down, again in white robes, sort of crouching down near this altar in the center of the kind of the T shape, as you hear him quietly in prayer. And as you sort of step forward, unfortunately, the prayer is blotted out by this almost inhuman scream that seems to rise up from beneath the floor. This kind of just scream out. It's almost inhuman, just echoing from beneath, and it leaves you all sort of just like shaking and shuddering. Ismark sort of sighs and says, "This is why he's not particularly. He hasn't been sleeping too well." He sort of he leads you all in, and you find a place to set the coffin down. It is closed over at this point. But you see as the prayer is interrupted by that, and you hear this deep sigh come from this individual who's crouched down. You can't really see too well, but they're crouched down, head bowed towards this stone altar that just has a couple of trinkets on it. What you do notice, again, specifically, obviously, Zadie, this stands out to you massively. You do notice a large symbol. Let me find it. I'm trying to find exactly the description here. You do see a large symbol of a sunburst, effectively, above the center of the altar. And just in front of it, there is a rope that leads up to this bell tower, where the bell kind of sits unmoving, which is behind the altar. And in fact, I can move you to the map. Which obviously entails to you guys, oh, I must have to fight something and kill something here. But, you know, I feel like you want to see it anyway.
Not always.
And hopefully... If we do it
I
this
just
way-
still have his mark up.
Okay, that should...
died.
That should work. I'm hoping.
Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Okay, so as you sort of there's a doorway which you guys cannot see through. What did I just do? I think I fixed it. It's all good. I pressed F12 and that full screens it briefly. So as you all stand outside, can you all see this? Can you all see where you're all stood? Okay, so effectively, let me bring him with you as well.
So might I say, you've done a really cool job with the actual like stream view. How you've got the map and everything. All
Shouldn't be looking at it, mate.
Don't take it.
You're not supposed to be looking at it.
Spoilers! Spoiler
Like
alert.
literally not supposed to be looking at it. So don't look at stream. There's one thing
I'll put
it's
you
like
in-
stipulating do not
We'll
do.
just look at chat and then.
Oh,
I'd
but the
actually know how to
solution.
have only the chat.
You can pop out the chat as a separate
Which
separate,
button is that?
window. If you click down on the chat options, it should be there as pop out
Yeah,
chat.
bear with me. I'm just trying to
Something to do with
find.
mangoes.
There it is.
That's what I've been doing.
Don't look at it. Don't look at it.
Chat options.
I said that was the solution.
I did see
There
that.
we
I
go.
didn't ask. Is that the cog where you have like your
Yeah.
things and shit?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
Ismark's,
pop out.
Ismark's with you as well. Sorry, I just wanted to have him come with
Awesome.
as well.
Okay.
So as you all sort of step into this hallway, effectively, I'm just going to try and get it roughly how it would be in terms of order. Richter and Ray, are you going ahead or staying behind of the coffin as they sort of
No,
set it to
I'll-
one side?
I'll stick by them.
Okay, so this is where you will find yourselves. Again, all the doors should be shut, but you can see that this place is well lit, and this individual who sort of crouched in prayer with his hands closed in front of him, struggles with the initial sounding, but the initial scream, but he continues his prayer, just muttering under his breath that you can't quite make out because it's a quiet prayer. And as you sort of stop here, Ismark sort of sets the coffin down and helps you set the coffin down, and sort of calls out and just goes, "Donovich," and you hear the prayer sort of continue for a brief moment and pause. You see the look of a man who, I mean, you can see his token now, I'm sure, but as he sort of turns his head, you see the look of a man who looks like he hasn't slept in about a month. He's a kind of well-built individual, and I'm just trying to get this as a visual as well. A slight but kind of chubby middle-aged man. His hair's grey and swept back. His hairline's receding, and again his eyes are kind of just bloodshot. He looks up and sort of sees his mark and goes, and he sort of looks across at the coffin and says, "I see you have brought your father. My condolences. But I suppose this makes you the new Burgomaster, so it's probably a title you do not willingly enjoy taking." But as he steps forward, you see emblazoned on his chest a sunburst again. It's kind of the shoulder robes, almost like the thing you get when you at university graduation. The kind of, I don't know what you call it, but that sort of sash that runs down and has usually as a color. This one is sort of a beigeish black and has gold trim indicating a sun. As you see this individual, whose name you have been given is Donovich, you should be able to see him now.
Okay. I'll just as we're sun and stuff, I'll touch my pendant while carrying.
It is
strong, I
glowing.
can do both.
And he does distinctly notice it.
Yeah.
As you sort of step forward and whatnot. Again, this place is a complete shambles. It's overturned, broken pews. Like I said, lots of candles, some of which have melted out, and they don't seem to have been lit evenly. So some parts of the hall are illuminated better than others, with no seeming pattern to it at all. It just seems like these were lit a while ago and they're just still burning. You do see, again, the bell tower stretching up and the four doors beside you, but he sort of stands up from his prayer, and looks across and just says, "Do you wish to bury him?" And he sort of looks across at Ismark. Ismark just kind of nods slowly. He looks at the rest. These are outsiders, and he just sort of does basically the equivalent of sun-like Hail Mary, kind of a pointed thing. I don't know. It probably looks like he's casting a spell, but he's not. And he just sort of says, "May the Morning Lord be with you all. It's not great circumstances you find yourselves in." As he sort of steps forward and there's a bit of a creak on the ground, you hear again this scream echo, this sort of voice that sounds like it's coming from a young man, as Donovich sort of stops and shudders slightly and places his hand on one of the pews, as he just hears the voice scream out, say, "Father! I'm starving!" And just screams out loudly and echoes the crowd, and he just sort of shudders slightly.
What the hell is that?
"It's none of your concern." And he sort of brings himself forward and just sort of again places his hand on the wall. "It's none of your concern."
This one, it's screaming in my ear.
I apologize that I have to scream quite loudly to emphasize quite how loud the scream is. This is quite meta. He makes his way there, and you see him kind of like give a kind of a sort of salutation to you all. But he looks kind of shaky, and again you hear another sort of scream echo out from beneath as he sort of just places his hand on Ismark's shoulder briefly and just sort of nods to him. "So you wish to bury him?"
Are there folk under there? We have food if there are people under there.
He shakes his head and just says, "It is none of your concern."
Can I check if he's full of shit?
Go ahead and make an insight check. Yeah, sure.
Nice one.
Sorry, can I also make an
Can
insight check?
I also do
Well,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say two people. I'll say two.
Not okay.
I'll say two people. So
Some of us have +5 on this. Let me go.
Some of us are very
wow.
deceptive of
We're
how
all
others
the
look.
good at it.
yeah,
Wow.
Oh my god!
I have +5 on this. 7.
Roll a 2.
Uh,
It's not my fault. I blame
Can
Bella.
I still roll mine or not?
well,
too
I
late?
mean, I did say two people. I did say Trundle and
Will do,
Guzza,
will do.
but no harm done. No harm done. Unfortunately, 7's not great. I'm gonna make a roll for him just for the sake of it. I mean, he's shaking. He's not particularly like he's not like you get the sense that it's kind of like just don't open that can of worms. Like there's definitely like him holding stuff back, but he is a kind of a like he looks super tired and looks kind of weakened. Like one of his eyes is kind of almost drooping slightly. But he just looks at you very sternly when he says it. It is not of your concern.
Maybe we'll deal with things one step at a time, but I ain't ignoring that.
Cool.
He keeps his eye on you for a moment, glances at your sort of your symbol and whatnot, and sort of just, you know, there's not like a sense of like there's not immediate kind of venom, but you get the sense that he's very wary of you, just looking at you, Zadie.
Yeah, that's fine.
But Ismark's there, sort of looking, and he says, and he sort of leans in and actually probably has a whispered brief conversation with Donovic, who again they exchange stuff briefly, quietly. I'm going to say this is whispered out of earshot effectively, but they sort of like understand. There seems to be like a sort of like a nodding from Ismark, a kind of like again another sort of stern look from Donovic back to Ismark, but he kind of says, "Well, you'll need to find the burial plot. Come with." And he kind of like pushes past towards the front doors and kind of makes an effort to hold the door open, but the doors are already kind of jammed open practically, as he kind of just like holds it and ushers for you all to step out and step around, where he sort of beckons towards the graveyard, which is, he kind of loops around the eastern side of the church. There's like a little path that leads up to a gate, and although the gate is somewhat rusted, it looks to be firmly in place. Are any of you doing anything at this point by any chance? I don't want to sort of just shoehorn you through it all, but he...
I mean, I'm locked
No,
into
I'm
kind
going
of
with it.
carrying this coffin, so...
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I might kind of
go.
nudge Ray and just be like, check on that, maybe?
And as you're sort of stepping out again, as you step over the threshold, you hear one last sort of scream come out. Just go, "No!" But that's it. As you make your way out.
Fine, ignore
I
it.
want to take a few steps further in so I can sort of get a visual of the entire place.
Sure. Yeah. You. I mean, if you haven't seen the interior at all, it is very much smashed up. There's not a clean part of this interior. And
To taking a cue from Victor, and with Zadie's nudge, I'll hang back with him as well, just for.
Well, I mean, I would say this would have happened before. If you're stepping back inside, Donovich would just say, "Please, time is of the essence." Ismark tells me. This is.
Okay, as we step away, I just want to mention to Ray. Those noises are most peculiar. We shouldn't leave this.
I think it bears some investigating. Like the
You
sound
ran to
it's
the-
making, but
Much more dire than the one we found previously. Coming, Donovich.
yes, it's coming.
Yeah, he's standing there again, just sort of waiting. As the wooden boards creak as you step over, the scream echoes out just once more. And it just says, "Father!" But he sort of beckons you out, and again, you see him kind of go to close the door, and then he just sort of shakes his head, gives another sort of, like, again, Hail Mary kind of thing, and steps away. And sort of follows you all as you lead this up the path. Now there isn't a specific map per se for this region, so I'm just going to pull you back to the village map, effectively as you are in this graveyard. And so you're led in through a gate from the right hand side, and you move between several plots, some of which have been smashed up, some of which look like the earth has been fairly recently tilled, unfortunately, but quite a few small crypts, effectively. There is like there's some empty spaces, some wider spaces, and some spaces where they look like gravestones have been set up against like one of the crypts, sort of in waiting, practically. And Donovich kind of walks around, sort of kind of waving his hand, kind of thing, almost warding away spirits, practically. As he walks around, you see him kind of like methodically talking to himself, and eventually he sort of wanders. You do kind of a loop of the graveyard before settling on a point where there appears to be a couple of gravestones set nearby, ready to be used, and a fair bit of empty space, and kind of just gestures near to some fresher looking gravestones and says, "This will have to do."
I'm feeling a little unsettled. Could I define sense again, please, while I'm here?
Yep. You define sense. You get a general sense of the area. You're in a graveyard, after all, of kind of like a tingle of death, but not undead. And you don't get any sense coming from Donovich.
Cool.
He just looks he looks tired. He looks tired and kind of wiry. But he kind of gestures to the ground. You see him walk away for a little bit and comes back with a few shovels. And seeing as there are a few of you that are quite physically fitter and bigger than he is, he hands one immediately to Ismark, who immediately just starts getting to work and just sort of trudging the soil out. It's kind of relatively firm soil, but with the kind of strength that you all hold, sort of hands them out again, probably to Guzza and Zadie, for the three that would be there, as you are just physically stronger, and he essentially just sort of sets to work as you see him sort of doing some sort of maybe mental preparations, maybe sort of spiritual preparations, as he sort of just stands around and figures things out. But you see Ismark constantly sort of looking around, wary of any sort of not introduction. What am I trying to say? Any intrusion, effectively, on the ceremony. As he digs away, as you all dig away, it's not long, thanks to the fact that there are three of you that are physically strong enough to sort of dig a decent enough 6-foot deep hole. The morning starts to pass towards the beginning of the sort of closing in towards midday, and as the sun gets higher in the still murky skies, it at least is warm enough to sort of burn away some of the mist. And during the time you dig this up, you kind of see the looming edifice, this time now lit well by the kind of gloomy sun, and you can see the kind of beautiful, huge architecture that stands at the top of this pinnacle of rock that shoots like a good half-mile up. It's imposing, to say the least, and seems to almost be pointing up towards the sky, like whilst sort of looming over this town at the same time. But as the digging takes place, as it continues, you like I said, you're eventually left with a hole that's decent sized enough. So after you finish that, Ismark kind of looks across, as Donovich has sort of been standing there, again, kind of not wringing his hand so much, but kind of just hands clasped. Ismark says, "Yeah, you helped me lower him down." And he sort of looks at the stronger of you.
I chuck the coffin. No, I don't. I gently.
Yeah.
Yep. No. Put in a cool.
Sure. He like, I mean, you will help out, and he sort of, again, you see him like that. Although he's fairly like stalwart, you do see him kind of like break just inside ever so slightly. There's like that sense of him. You see his hands just as he's lowering it. There is a definite bit of weight in his hands as he holds like one end of the coffin, but you see his hands very very slightly shaking and sort of drop as he lowers his father into this grave.
Okay, I'll just be like, would you like me to say a prayer?
As you say this, Donovich sort of says, "This is my graveyard, if you don't mind." And Ismark sort of just...
Oh yeah, you go.
Sort of just, thank you. I think he'll probably, because he'll recognise your clerical nature, he'll probably say, "Thank you, sister." Yeah. And he sort of waves his hands around a little bit. There's like a censer kind of thing that he kind of slowly swings, and there's like a bit of faint incense smoke sort of stemming around. But he does say a prayer. He says, or sort of says a quick word. He says, "Kolyan was he led for a long time. He was a good man, and he will be sorely missed." Ismark the Lesser, excuse me, Ismark Kolyanovich, you are, I suppose, now the Burgomaster. Sort of again steps back and nods. There's not like so much a supposition there, more than just him literally stating a fact. And he sort of just takes a step back as he sort of waves the incense a little bit, and Ismark steps forward, realizing that none of you know this man. He sort of just decides to not say anything and just stands there for a moment, looking down for a while. He closes the lid on his father's coffin and sort of tills the first piece of earth down, and it sort of just scatters across the cheap wood that was used to put this together. You see him kind of biting his lips slightly, but again, he's stalwart. He holds himself there, and after sort of completing the ceremony, and you manage to sort of till the earth back over. He sort of looks across at all of you, and like there's a genuine sense of like, thank you, truly thank you. And yeah, effectively you bury him. There is no disturbances. There are no... Although Ismark sort of lets his guard down for a brief while, nothing out of the ordinary occurs, and you're left there with a now fresh grave, freshly tilled, as he looks across at all of you. Now, shall we head back?
Chandler makes headway.
I think we should deal with the screaming, if that's okay.
Donovich just sort of looks at you. It is none of your concern.
Screaming is always my concern.
Chandler heeds
Not
his words.
I want to, can I subtle cast suggestion on him?
I've already started beelining for the door. I'm already just leaving.
You can totally subtle cast a suggestion on him. So, I mean,
okay.
Go ahead and click the spell. I mean, subtle cast is no verbal or somatic components, right?
Nope, and it only has a verbal component. So
okay, so yeah, you just as you sort of look at him,
I suggest
you go ahead and cast suggestion on him. And what do you well, this is the interesting thing about suggestion, because you kind of need to. I appreciate.
Okay,
you know,
yeah, I know, I understand. Basically, it's masking the fact that I'm even casting a spell to him.
100. Well, I'd say you're able to do it without even saying anything.
Yeah.
But what are you suggesting? Because we do
I'm
still.
suggesting to him that, Donovich, we've known each other for such a long time. We're trustworthy friends. Surely you can share this with close company.
So you suggest that he shares the information. Okay.
Yes.
So it's a. Can you? Oh, you've got the spell. It is a wisdom save, I believe.
Wisdom save to my spell DC, which is if my page will load a second, everything's like grayed, like turned white for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, it tends to do that. Hold on, where's my spell DC? It's still loading. For whatever reason.
That's all right. I think your DC it would be 8.
13.
13. Yeah. So
there we go.
Wisdom save from. Oh, that's just a roll to me, so I didn't roll, but I want to roll so you guys can see it.
Yeah.
He fails.
8.
And as you sort of wave your hand again without anything being exchanged, no words being exchanged, as like Trundle starts to head off, and Zadie sort of pointing out like, screaming's always my problem. He sort of turns to sort of like, you see this kind of like stubbornness sort of look in his eyes, but there's a desperation behind his eyes. As you sort of cast it, he sort of just turns his head, and he sort of shrinks back slightly as he looks at you, Richter. All of you having not heard anything, so you're probably still being like, if they're screaming, this is gonna happen, you know, like doing your thing, you know.
It's gonna confide in me.
And you see like through gritted teeth as he sort of echoes this out. It is my son. He has been changed by the Devil's Strahd. He was a year ago. And like, you see Ismark sort of looking like, you know, weirded out by this, like, sort of like surprised somewhat, but you know, having not seemingly heard this, and the rest of you are all sort of confused as to why he's suddenly confiding this towards Richter. I mean, he's confiding to all of you because you did talk about you're all friends kind of thing. But he just sort of says, a year ago, a wizard, a black-robed wizard, bald head, long beard, came to storm the castle. And he sort of gestures up towards the sky, his hand shaking. Like, you see, like, he's fighting the instinct to tell you this, but it's still just coming out. And he recruited several Barovians from all over Barovia, and he gestures sort of everywhere. You get the indication that this village is called Barovia, but this land is also called Barovia, this area. And he sort of gestures to fight alongside him, but by all accounts, the wizard was slain by Strahd's hand, and so was my son. So was Doru. But he came back, but he was not himself. He was like him, but dangerous. But he is my son. I did what any father would do. I managed to get him in the basement of... And you see him like kind of struggling here, like almost like, again, fighting the instinct purely because he's under the instinct of your spell. He's not kind of breaking down weeping. Just telling you this and like revealing this all to you. He's in the undercroft of the church. And he cannot leave. Because he will do harm to others, but he will not. But I cannot. I must find a way. The Morning Lord will find a way to fix him. He will find a way. He must. And as he sort of like finishes that sentence effectively, he kind of like, his eyes kind of change slightly. He goes, not quite wild, but his head like, you know, you feel the suggestion spell effectively end as he's imparted the information you were requesting. And he sort of just, he turns and just says, and he like, he doesn't quite throw himself at you, but he throws himself and just like grabs your like, what do you wear actually, Richter?
I wear like, imagine like a Victorian physician, you know, like I've got like a nice sort of like white sleeve shirt, some, I don't know, small like kind of like overcoat-ish kind of thing. Not necessarily robes.
Sure.
But you know. And
he just grabs the edges like of your sort of like your robes and your shirt. Just goes, why would you make me? Please don't hurt him. He's not hurting anyone. He's just down there. He's alone.
Relax. My
and he sees. I
place my hand on his shoulder and just try and like calm him down.
Yeah, Trundle, have you just left already at this point? Kind of heading in that direction?
Like, I'm if possible, I'm in the room which the other people quickly scouted out.
You've all stepped in there briefly anyway. Like it's just essentially the center of the church, but effectively.
I'm listening then for the sound, trying to discern exactly where it comes from. Then I'm trying to find this thing.
Sure, I would say
it is now the concern.
I would say because of the scale and because of this sort of timeline, you would be making you'd probably be by like round the edge of the church. You're not quite in yet.
Cool,
he sort of like examines everyone who's here, and he sort of sees Zadie, who's been here this whole time, and again just like says to her, grabs you, just like, again, he's not too strong or anything. He just grabs you sort of out of desperation, just says, "Don't hurt him," and he sort of sinks to his knees at that point, just like hands clasped. He says, "You are a sister of the Morning Lord. You must understand. He is not to hurt anyone." And he just sort of looks up at you, just like.
Surely you can sympathize with this man's plight.
Sure. I mean, as long as he's kept safe, I guess that's fine.
And he sort of like sees you say that. He's still very wary, but he looks around, noticing that you're not all there. He goes, "Where is the other one?
We should
And
collect him before he does
He's,
something
yeah,
stupid.
he scrambles
I'm
to
going
his
after him.
he scrambles to his feet and just like pulls up, like, you know, his robes aren't exceptionally long, but in order to run he has to like pull his robes up to his knees at least.
I'm gonna try and stop him and just like put my hand out and be like, "Hey, you've tried to do a really wonderful thing here. You are a good man."
He's trying to run. You can try and grapple him if you like, because he's right
I
next
will
to you.
kind of try and stop him. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and make a. I guess this is athletics check for you. I know it's like, I know you're not being like forceful, but you're trying to grapple
Yeah.
him. So.
I'm going after Trundle.
Athletics check.
Yes, it would be athletics check, and he can make an athletics or acrobatics. I think they're both equally not very
That
good.
was not great.
Yeah, for some reason I
To
closed
me,
his sheet, so
Or
bear
to
with
the
me.
guy.
This is to
Is
the
there
guy.
anything
You're
I can
already
do?
long gone, effectively.
Yeah, cool.
But
Yeah.
Guzza, Rhea, what are you up to as well? Because obviously,
Is there anything I can do to help Zadie? Can I go after the same person? I feel like I've been near her.
Sure. I'll say go ahead and roll again, Zadie. It's sort of rolling with advantage on the grapple check as he sort of gets up to go. You're both right there. You're probably near Zadie. You're all pretty congregated. You're probably
Yeah, I'm
able
going
to help.
stick with Zadie for the moment.
Yeah. So Zadie, again, it's you making it with advantage as sort of Guzza blocks the path somewhat.
Yeah, I'll block like the right hand side or something, and she's blocking the left. So I'm like, "Whoa."
Okay, I thought I clicked it, but I'm gonna click it again.
By all means.
Oh my god, that's one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is. I mean, he's got +0 on either, so it doesn't really make a difference. But I'm gonna say he's just trying to like barge through. He's just trying to run after there. So makes a check. It's a 14. So as you sort of like try and get in his way, there's like almost the paternal instincts and just the sheer adrenaline of fear. He just bashes through you and just starts running. And like he's running effectively. This is just for context. He's running effectively at a dash pace, so you can kind of keep with him. But you won't be able to grapple him effectively.
Okay,
like,
yeah, I'll just keep with him. That's fine.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just running. He's not like, he didn't like maliciously hurt you or shove you or anything. He's just running,
Yeah.
and he starts bolting, like sort of running off there. Meanwhile, Trundle, you make it to the entrance hallway. Go ahead and make a perception check, as sort of the creaking of the floorboards does cause another moan to come up from below.
Cool.
I mean, effectively, you're aware it's beneath the floorboards, but there, as you examine the room, I'll pull us all back there as you all kind of reconverge. As you examine the room, I'll say based off of where you are, and this would probably be Trundle in there. You can't see any way down from this area, and I'll say because you did go a fair bit earlier, but you also don't have the information that they have. Be aware of that yet, because that was all said as you had already left. What would you like to do at this point, Trundle, as you're sort of going in? Ismark does start running after.
Would I have reached him by this point? Because I left the moment like he mentioned that he was missing.
That's true, actually.
I mean, well, as
You
he
were-
meant,
you were
as
attracted.
what Trundle when Trundle mentioned it.
I
Sure.
was
he was-
Okay.
he was trying to-
I'll say yeah. You're
The moment he was meant.
okay. Yeah, he would be running after both of you then. But yeah, you managed to catch up as Trundle sort of looking around, sort of shakes his head and turns back, sort of towards this area. What would you both like to do as you sort of reconvene
Right.
there?
I'm just gonna briefly explain the situation to it.
Mhm.
Unfortunately,
What-
his
No, Trundle headed off before any of the information went, so the information
fine,
took like a
I'm
minute or
explaining
so.
I'm explaining the information to him.
Oh, in that case,
I
you'd be arriving like just before Donovich, effectively. Like, because all the information came out, he pleaded and then just went, whereas Trundle went straight away
okay.
before any of the information.
I would have been at the same time.
Sure. So I mean, you make it in just there, and you're able to just start explaining it as Donovich sort of slams to the door, and I guess Ray, you would be able to catch up to him, being a rogue. You would be able to dash twice, if you so please.
Yeah. I'll just try and get in front of him and just sort of block him off at the entrance and say, "Whoa, just a second."
He's trying to push.
Stop it.
He's trying to push past you, but you can again try and
Yeah,
grapple him.
I'll try and grapple him.
Yeah.
If it will
And
get him.
because you would have effectively been able to do this a couple of times on the way in,
Yeah.
because you can dash every turn and still grapple him or try to.
Yeah.
Go ahead and make it with advantage to account for those previous rolls. I think it just makes more sense that it happens here.
So just a strength check.
Athletics check, yeah, with
okay.
advantage, but it is athletics, and he's
Okay.
this time he's trying to move out your way, so it's Dex. It makes a difference. It's a +0, but okay. So yeah, in this sense, as you're sort of able to keep up with him before you try and like grab him whilst he's running, you make your way with sort of extreme speed into the doorway, and as he sort of ducks to try and move out the way, you're able to kind of like get your hands on him, and he's sort of like, again, he's wriggling against you, so there will be, you know, he's effectively trying to break the grapple. But Richter, at this point, you've had a few seconds to just start explaining what's happened, but you haven't really got to the full explanation. And as the commotion hits this doorway, as you all sort of catch up at this point, as Donovich has been effectively stopped, he's still kind of thrashing around. You just hear the scream just come out and you go, please! Just come out from beneath. Again, Donovich is struggling. What would you guys like to do at this point?
I'll simply explain to Trundle the situation that I'm afraid to say Donovich's son has been touched in a particular way by Strahd, and his mind may not be what it used to be. It would be best if we didn't interfere, for this man is already grieving enough for the loss of his son mentally.
Do you not think it'd be wise to see this through?
The madman's already kept away from everyone else. The only person he would pose harm to is his own father. It would probably be in our interest to not upset the locals, for we currently need them. We don't know where we are. We have no idea what's going on in this location. If Strahd's power extends this far, then surely we should be wary of its effects rather than punishing those who have already suffered at his hand.
At this point, again, the conversation is very much interrupted by the slamming, and Donovich and Rhea sort of just like struggling and managing to sort of pin him, not against the walls per se, but hold him back as he's sort of still just like struggling. Just let me go!
Get my arms from underneath. Stop it!
No! Do not hurt him!
Relax, Donovich.
He's not your son anymore!
We're just...
You don't know that! He sort of like, again, just shakes you.
What kind of life is he got down there? You keep him locked away. I can hear him screaming.
Trundle will stop.
It is not your business! It is not hurting anyone. The Morning Lord will...
You are hurting him. He is hurt. I can hear that scream. That's a hurt scream.
He's not hurt. Would you rather he's out feeding on people? No, I keep him safe, I keep everyone else safe.
I'm gonna walk.
I'd rather he put out of his misery.
No!
Everyone
And he tries to break the
everyone,
grapple.
everyone calm.
Ray, please let go of the man. Let's not escalate the situation, shall we?
I draw my rapier and put it at the man's throat.
Hey.
Go ahead and make an
There's
intimidation
no need
check.
for this to end in violence. We have got a lot of people trying to do the right thing with good intentions. We just need to work out what the best plan is. Now.
He backs off like a little bit. He's still very much agitated. He's still kind of wrestling away from Rhea. I'm not making any checks because I'm effectively figuring you're pinned in here. But you see him pull away a bit, and he just starts sort of like holding his holy symbol and just muttering to himself, like a sort of an incantation, a prayer kind of thing. Doesn't appear to be a spell, but he just sort of muttering an incantation. He just says, "Father, please forgive them. They know not what they do. They do not understand your grand plan. He brings violence into a church. Please forgive him for his transgressions." And he sort of just like, he stares back at you, Trundle, but he sort of looks at all of you as you sort of are effectively encircling him.
I'm gonna step aside and allow him a space to move.
He's still held by Rhea unless Rhea is let go of him.
Yeah, no, I'm still holding.
If you think I care about your beliefs, then you're sorely mistaken. I care about my survival, and I care about the survival of my party. I do not care about the inhabitants of this village.
This thing isn't threatening us at all.
Yeah.
And like, I'm the first person to say that unholy abomination should be dealt with, but if there is someone trying to deal with it, then we can leave it.
How is this dealing with it?
And as you say that first thing, as you hold the rapier to his throat, he just sort of looks at you, like, again, his eyes, there's definitely some fear in there, but he just looks at you, Trundle, and says, "If you cut me down, you're no worse than him." Again, he's definitely like, he's somewhat out of breath from the running. He's somewhat fearful, but there's enough confidence in him, or perhaps just ballsiness and sanity, to just sort of say, to tell you, you'd be no worse, you'd be no better than the monster that lives on the hill.
I press myself very close up to him, like right up to his face, so he can smell my probably horrible breath, and say, "There is not much worse than me."
You fool yourself.
Trundle, we are here to help. Oh,
and he continues his
know
incantations.
Yes. Do you think you're helping by letting this abomination live? Help. You seem to know nothing of it.
I do not know if this thing is good or not, but I know that this guy is trying to handle
Well,
it,
then
and we can
precisely.
handle it on a bigger level that does not involve killing someone's child.
And you think I wish to kill it? I wish to sort this out. We should see it, and we should sort it out. I'm not here to kill. I am here to fix. Now.
You are holding a rapier to a holy man's throat right now.
And you
In the
think I
middle
will
of a
kill him?
chapel, mind you. Well,
What?
you only draw a weapon with an intent to kill, do you not?
The screen pierces through again. Just
I intend for
continues.
information.
And we've already received it, and when I relayed it back to you, your response is violence. Trundle, I'm beginning to question your motives here. Although, do not get me wrong, I have cared for you, and you are a friend of mine, but do you really believe that drawing your sword, aiming it to this man's face, is the correct approach to this, while you've already received all the information he has to offer?
I sheathe my rapier and leave the room and say, fine. Let the demons live.
You don't even know what it is, Trundle.
And neither do you.
Precisely.
I'm
Can I
literally
cast?
just trying to find out what it, is. I just want to see it.
You got a sword
Doesn't-
at the man's throat.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna do this while I can because I never remember to do this. Yeah, I'll go for another divine sense as well, just to see if this is a thing that I think it might be.
In terms of what you're effectively seeing if the area is desecrated, consecrated. Is that effectively?
Well, yeah, but also I think Trundle is worried about the presence of this being, thinking it might be not what it's not. I'm hoping that I can, with some backed up information, say there are many things I can confirm that it's not right now because I know it's not dead.
Unfortunately, divine sense does not go through full cover. The floorboards
Oh,
are effectively full cover.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, you would know that. You don't have to expend it. But yeah, you would need to be able to have it at least even partly visible. You know, even if it was, say, for example, a skeleton in like a mosaic or something. I don't know, in a wall feature, you'd be able to divine sense, even if it was like mainly covered up and just the head visible. You'd be able to tell if it was a creature or not, if it was an undead or not.
Okay.
But
Sure.
because
Okay.
it's behind,
I'll hold fire.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just
That's quite alright. That's quite alright.
Can I turn to Zadie and just say, listen, I know what you're like. You want to do the good thing, and it's fine. It's fine. You do a good thing for me. I am a criminal, and you let me out of prison.
As you say, you're a criminal. You just hear Donovich's voice say, "Please forgive this woman for her."
Shut up.
Yeah.
Don't worry, she's good.
You see something good in me, and it is wonderful, and I am grateful. But this, whatever this thing is, it cannot be good, I don't think. So you have the two choice. You have choice to leave it in prison down here. And what happens when this man can no longer keep it in check?
As you say, sort of, it's good or not. He says, good or bad, it does not matter. He is innocent. He was fighting for, knowing that he's given you all sort of information anyway. He was fighting for these people of this land against that monster. You wish to cut him down now.
He
You
did
think
not
he
He's-
wants to
deserve what
become the
happened
thing
to
that
him.
he fought?
He is not beyond redemption.
I do not know how these things work, but I know that there are two things that's one thing I cannot stand, and it is to restrain something that should be free. But this thing should not be free if it will hurt people, and yet we cannot keep it prisoner.
It is not imprisoned. It is for everyone else's safety. One day he may be cured. Until that day, it has been 1 year. He has not left once.
By his own choice.
He's under lock and key.
We could cure it.
And he sort of looks.
He's saying that this thing's there by its own choice.
Well, he said it's under lock and key.
Then it is not free to leave. It is a prisoner still.
He is a patient of the Morning Lord. The Lord will see fit to redeem him when penance has been done. He has hurt no one. He has not fed on anyone. But he is
Only
not
because
beyond
he is here.
redemption. He is an innocent young boy. He is my boy. He kind of again trails off.
only because you keep.
That is true, but if this boy was turned in while he was trying to do good, and his daddy is now trying to do good, I think it is better for us to look for cure rather than send this boy to the next place. You know?
Can this thing be cured? I don't know these things.
I don't know either, but
I'd say Zadie, being that you seem to think you know about vampires.
I do. I feel like I know about vampires.
Go ahead and make a. I'll just say it's a religion check because it's the most fitting here.
That's not great though.
Really?
It's the most appropriate. Yeah,
It's an
Sophie,
intelligence.
you are the most intelligent person in the party. I'm not joking. I don't think anyone else has above a 10. So.
Also, after taking a breather, Trundle will start moving back from outside. Just move towards the conversation.
that was not good.
Yeah. You don't know. You think that Pelor created them, so you can probably uncreate them, right? You don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we deal with like root cause rather than dealing with symptoms, which is this guy with this boy who was innocent, then he will be cured.
Donovich doesn't say anything. He kind of just like, he's still sort of muttering, kind of looks at you as you say that and sort of says, "See, this one, this sister of the Morning Lord, she understands. He is not beyond redemption."
No, she says what you want to hear. We don't know this thing.
But you don't know otherwise either.
No, but we want to find out.
How will you do that? You want to
No.
murder him?
By fucking finding him. Trundle doesn't say that.
Sure. You get the sense he's beneath the floor, and he did say to the rest of you he is in the undercroft of the church. So you're aware, like, locationally where he would be. It's just like a cellar.
Is that like a
yeah, like a large cellar that would cover the.
Have a look for a cellar instead of totally getting engaged with the conversation you get whilst I'm outside. Can I just have a sneaky little amble?
Well, whereabouts are you going? There, you've looked through the main room. It wasn't a great check, but you didn't see any sort of way down.
I mean, do I just have to choose a left or a right kind of thing around the?
There are 4 doors.
I can't really see them, so.
I mean, you can step in. Donovich is sort of.
You mean here? Inside.
Correct.
I mean, I couldn't really see them. I'll just pick any door. This door. Can I
Sure.
pick this door?
Wait, you can move through the wall. I need to change these things. You shouldn't be able to move through the walls. That's fine though. You open the door, and it swings open into what looks like a sort of a.
Shall I hop in?
Let me just quickly change these settings because I know it's right. It's not your fault. Restrict movement, only update on drop. Beautiful. So you should now effectively not be able to move through walls, but the door is open there. As you step inside, you see, again, it looks much like a sort of an office space. There's a table and chair. There's a wooden holy symbol. Again, the same kind of sunburst, smaller, but directly above the desk here. Fairly well carved. And there is like a railing on the north wall, which is completely bare, but it hangs much as if like a tapestry would have hung there. On the table there are a couple of books and a couple of other things as well. They look to be religious texts.
Sorry, while I've got Donovich grappled.
Yeah, he's kind of given up
like...
fighting, but he's kind of like still sort of pulling away.
No, yeah, I'd like to use my mage hand to pull the collar of his robe back.
What the
Just
the
neck.
Just that way kind of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Sure. As you start doing it, he just sort of like looks uneasily and sort of starts struggling again. Like, what are you doing? Again, he starts like incanting in religious way. But I mean, he doesn't. You're sort of like lifting it up. It's not lifting him up. Just sort of pulling at his clothes a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he reacts to it, but he's not.
Do I see anything on his neck? Any marks?
I see. No, you don't.
Yeah. Can I do the same with his wrists I just see if there are any cuts where he might have bled himself, basically.
Sure, you sort of pull up his thing either with your own hands or with the mage hand, and it sort of uncovers these kind of these fairly pale arms, you know, like thickish arms, but kind of more doughy than any sort of particular muscularity. There's no sort of signs of what's it called? Essentially, you know, there's no signs of self-harm, effectively. Yeah, self-mutilation. Obviously, there's a couple of scars here and there, but they are kind of the kind of scars that someone who is in their 50s may have obtained over a normal life. His hands are kind of fairly, you know, weathered, and his nails are somewhat yellowed, but his arms are clean. No tattoos, no bites, no like noticeable fresh scratches or cuts.
How close is the vampire son to us?
How close is
the kid to us? The screaming
close.
thing.
You don't know for sure. I mean, it's beneath the church, but you don't know the sort of distances.
I can't remember. I didn't find any.
I mean,
down in this room.
Looking around, you don't see anything. However, as you sort of do sort of open that, Donovan sort of calls out and goes, like, you know, once you sort of start exploring, and he sort of his focus is drawn back to you. He goes, no, stop what you're doing. You're pushing through someone else's property, the property of the church. Who do you think you are? You're a monster.
I'm still holding him.
I continue to search for a way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to look into the eyes of this man and be like, look, we both are worshippers of the Sun Lord, and we know that as the sun rises, so it sets. And I currently do not know if the sun has set on your son, but it may be better to release him, or it may be better to keep him with us for a chance to be restored. But I cannot know that till I see.
Go ahead and make a persuasion check, but even so with disadvantage. Then I mean,
no.
This is someone who is unwilling to reveal any of this to you.
Trundle is furiously throwing shit around.
Sure, you move into that room, and he calls out again. What are you doing? You're terrible. You come and desecrate the one place he cannot touch. 7. He looks unwilling to cooperate. Yeah.
Again?
He just sort of shakes his head. However, Trundle, in that room, again, there's nothing major. This looks like it's a freshly kept straw bed mattress, with a there's a small like oil lamp that's actually lit on the table there, and again, the sun symbol is mounted on the wall above the bed.
I leave everything fairly unkept.
Yeah, you toss in the bed, you shift it to one side. There's nothing underneath it. There's no cabinets. This is a very plain room.
I move straight away as soon as I find nothing.
He will try and grab you here.
Alright, cool.
Yeah, but he grab out at you.
What is Ismark doing right now?
Ismark, I mean, I'm kind of sidelining him. He seems somewhat in shock, he's somewhat in shock, but he's not overly surprised. Effectively, yeah. But he's going to try and reach out at you. That's a nat 1. Never mind. He's being held by Rhea. He kind of just tries to grab you, but you shift through and you push open a door into a room that is somewhat like waterlogged. As you see in the ceiling, there have been sort of holes punched through by rainfall, and as tiles have just pushed in, this room has been filled with neglect. However, the one thing you do notice immediately...
This room? I can't move.
The one next to you, yes.
Okay, cool.
But you do notice is in the corner, set into the floor, it's a heavy wooden trapdoor, shut with a chain and a padlock. And as you sort of approach it, you do hear when a scream echoes out. As you sort of look, the scream, although it seems to be echoing through the floorboards, echoes from this trapdoor as well. Not like right under it or anything like that, but the sound is under the trapdoor. And I think that's actually where we're going to leave the session, guys, because it's coming up to 11. You found the trapdoor there, and I think it's a pretty appropriate point to wrap.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Cool. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, this is my players. This is weird because I haven't done this before, and we haven't done this.
It's my first time.
But I think that went pretty well. Besides the whole my Streamlabs closing partway through the stream.
Kicky thing.
Didn't last too long.
Honestly, thank you, my players, as always. Love you guys.
Love you too, baby
I
cakes.
think, you know, some of us do need to go to bed. I'm actually okay to stay up for a little bit longer, just to chat with chat, say some thanks, because I do just want to thank
Actually, ironically, I'm usually the person who makes us go early, but it is half term right now, so I...
Oh, okay, so it's the one week you don't have to head right off. But I feel like it's still a good point to end the session, because it's right on a crux point. As you bust through that door, I will say Trundle, Donovich just goes, no, and he screams out loudly. But again, as he reaches out towards you, he again is left sort of like struggling against Rare, but unsuccessfully.
Only one of the weakest characters here.
Yeah,
very conflicting.
On this old man. Great.
Yeah, well, but like I said, thank you guys so much, because you know I love running D&D with you guys. I do, you know, and I'm really excited to see where this goes next, because they're no longer on like a sort of a set piece.
Gonna have a dead child.
So.
Let's kill his
Yeah.
dad.
We also do a thing where we vote for hero points. So instead of using, this is an explanation for anyone viewing, instead of using inspiration, because it is only like a one-time thing, so you can only ever have one inspiration at a time, we use a feature called hero points. I believe it's in the player's handbook. Effectively, you can get points to roll a d6 on any check and just add it to the check. So instead of being like advantage, it's a little bit more bounded, but it means you can like really push those important rolls and you're not stuck with just one. So what we do is we vote for hero points for each other, for anyone who like did something really cool in the session or really role played their character really well. And again, they only have a few, so there's not a load of them, so you can't just like use them on every roll. But if you guys want to vote and send them to me on Discord, so that they're not in the stream, exactly, so I think it's fair that we can go over who got it afterwards, because I do need to. I can't actually look at Discord right now because it's what we use our cameras for, and it's all mounted up on this screen, which I can't really pull it down because then everything will go all wacky. But besides, thank you to my players. Thank you to you guys for tuning in and watching and giving nice feedback. I'm going to have to go through everyone who followed and donated, because there's a lot of you, and I mean, thank you, truly. You know, there's no need to donate. It is appreciated. I believe, Catering, thank you incredibly for basically funding the rest of that microphone. Again, we need to understand quite how we're going to distribute this, because obviously, you know, one microphone, who it goes to. I already have myself set up. I'm already well geared because I've been doing the streaming thing for several months now. But I want to make sure that just if we do continue doing this, because I really hope we do. But if we feel like it's ever negative or whatnot, we will like really reconsider it, because you know. But you guys have been nothing but great, and that is seriously appreciated. So thank you, guys, truly. And guys, how did you find it? This is
Right.
Yeah, good. Awesome.
Yeah, you guys were awesome.
Yeah, great.
Let's go back to the
I'm
big
excited.
cameras.
I
Yeah.
cannot wait for the next session. I can't wait to keep going and to let us press onwards.
Yeah, I'm super hyped. I mean, I was already hyped,
Looking forward,
but sorry,
I'm
Sophie.
looking forward to maybe not next session, because we don't know what might happen. Showcasing some combat at some point.
Yes,
But I think
agreed.
it's definitely good to get into the characters as well and get a kind of
Yeah.
feel for them as
It's
well.
been
for-
like-
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like we haven't had much chance to really role play a lot in the Death House.
Exactly.
That's very true.
Yeah, you guys had a bit of role play in session 0.
I mean, I've learned a lot about Guzza this session.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot about all of you, which is quite exciting. Like, I've learned a lot of things, and I hope you like the dream nightmare sequences as well. I didn't want to put too much on you guys having to do anything there, but I hope you enjoyed them. But I'm just gonna, if you guys don't mind, just run through a few things, a few donations and whatnot, just to go through it, because it is really appreciated. So I've got to scroll so far down. Zoan,
Thank you, everyone.
Zoan is one of my. This is a thing for you guys that you guys weren't aware of. Zoan is one of my players. Well, not one of my players. Excuse me. One of the players I played through Curse of Strahd with. Back a year and a half ago. We ended about half a year ago. So thank you so much, Zoan, for the sub, dude. Yeah, and I'm so happy you tuned in. If you're still here, otherwise you'll see this on YouTube probably or something or wherever if we put this up. If not in the VOD on Twitch. But sorry, you guys need to say anything?
You're amazing.
Cool. Yeah, thank you, Zoan. Freddy's my tier 3 sub. Effectively, he spends a hideous amount of money, as well as for the 4,250 bits. That's nuts. You're insane. You're closing in on 50,000. I think 50,000. It's an insane amount of donations. So thank you, man. Again, I'm going to put some bits towards speeding that process up.
I have no
Thank
idea how
you,
cheers
person.
and things like that
So
work.
every single bit is equivalent to 1 cent. So 4,250 bits is about $42.50. Obviously, there are some bits taken off by PayPal when it gets transferred every 45 days if I've earned enough in the month. But hey, Zoran, thank you, man, and I hope you enjoy the mango emote whenever you might find a place to use that on Twitch. Thank you for the follow.
We'll make some
Yeah.
appropriate moments.
Yeah. Thank you for the follow from Born Bard. I'm going to try and find follows, and I'm going to try and find other things. No, not to belittle them, but obviously donations are insane. Dr. Loverman, Old Curtis, Cannibal Pie Demon. It's a fantastic name. I believe Zadie for now is Yushan, right?
That's me.
Yeah, okay, because I saw that and I was like, someone's already created an account with the name of a character. This is insane.
No,
and I was like,
no,
oh no, it's obviously
That is
Sean.
me. Yeah. I don't have Twitch, so
Yeah.
I just.
Yeah, Ghost. Okay, so Ghostastic.
I feel like a middle-aged.
Go for it.
What is Twitch?
Yeah.
Mango.
What is this crazy thing that you kids use? There's Ghostastic Toe. So it's Ghostastic, and then Ghostastic Tacto. There we go. Pengu Dog. And May as well. Thank you for the host towards the end of that. Apologies that we're sort of just ending.
Is that
Yeah, that is May. That is
May
May.
too?
Yeah, May
shit,
May
big
hosts
scale.
and raids me like, with fair occasion. So thank you,
lovely.
thank you, dude. I'm sorry it's right at the end of the stream, but or at least end of the play. But
Big shout out to May.
yeah, big shout. Go check out May as well. I can't remember if I've got a shout out thing. He plays all sorts of like quirky games. He is effectively a variety streamer. I believe that will work. There you go. Go follow May. Because
May's awesome.
he's a super nice guy.
May's a good guy.
Like a genuinely nice guy, and I don't try and bandy around nice terms.
I used to live with him, and we used to eat loads of McDonald's, and he's super chill.
Well, that's the most glowing review I've ever heard of anyone.
Yeah, we ate McDonald's.
Wait, loads of McDonald's. Oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for the bits, obviously Freddie. Thank you, Brew. I love you, dude. Thank you so much for the 102 bits. Teth, really appreciated 100 bits. May as well for the 50 bits. Just chilling. Why not? Make mistakes. We should be having another one next Tuesday, so you can tune in then. You love yourself too. And Cannibal Pie Demon. It's a great name. Thank you for the 15 bits as well, dude.
Cannibal Pie was helping us sort out the technical difficulties. He was,
really?
He was all over the.
See, my technical difficulties stopped me from seeing that.
Oh yes, well yes.
Yeah. But thank you, Cannibal Pie Demon. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll try and create. I'll think about creating a some kind of enemy that is a Cannibal Pie Demon. It won't be immediate at first, and then you'll be like, oh. He's a pie demon that eats other pie demons.
Campaign again.
Yeah, forget that. But yeah, and just for the subscriptions as well, Kettering, the donation, truly thank you, and thank you for the sub. Freddy's, I've just got to go through all of Freddy's bits. Where else? Kettering as well for the I believe it's 2 gifted subs as well to Harry, right over there. Which is appreciated. Thank you for 20 more bits as well.
I got something as well. I don't know what it is because I don't understand. Because I'm an old
I think you got gifted a sub, did you not?
I
Yes,
did.
thank you,
Yeah,
Catherine.
it's very lovely.
Yeah, and Kittering, thank you gifting to Looney Lacuna, and last but definitely not least, Brew, thank you for the gift sub for Sean. Well, I was going to say Zadie because you are Zadie, but you're also Sean. So thank you for that, guys. Truly,
Shady.
this has been it's been a really fun experience to do this, to try this. It was super scary at first, and then everything was just totally fine, and then it broke, and I nearly died inside. And we're all good now. We should have 2 recordings. I'll try and blend them in on Twitch, on YouTube or something, on a VOD thing. I'm around for a few more minutes as well. We can stick around for a few more minutes if we want to. If anyone has any questions, but I mean, again, it's getting late. I don't want to keep people too long. We also probably want to do just a bit of a wind down off stream as well, because this is our first time. It's crazy and scary and exciting and awesome, and you guys are awesome. So, again, Cannibal Pie. Yeah, I get it. It's a pie demons that eat other pie demons. It makes total sense.
It's clever.
But it was mentioned before, but also probably wasn't said. But yes, thank you, Ian, as always, for
Yeah,
running on the
absolutely.
I wouldn't do it if I didn't love you guys.
Ian the Big D.
Yeah. And now I've got to figuring out how to get mics and stuff to you guys, if that's what we're going to
Ian,
do.
who's bizarrely attractive as both the brother and the sister of that family.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. And Guff, dude, thank you for the resub, for the 6-month resub. right there at the end. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you all enjoyed. And you get your blue flame now, which is a 6-month. Basically, when you sub, there's different color icons. It's really silly and childish, but it's also exciting. So congratulations on 6 months, and thank you for 6 months. But yeah, I mean, we will be doing this if everyone's available next Tuesday. We all good?
Super Tuesday.
Everyone around for next Tuesday?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, why not?
So
Terrifying Tuesdays.
terrifying Tuesdays. That's not a bad idea.
Gonna be at the dentist, but I should be okay.
Okay, well we should be okay. We'll let you know in advance if anything changes, if we have to shift it back, whatnot. But we'll try and stick it on the Tuesdays. That's usually a day we always play. There will occasionally
Tuesday
be
nights.
times where we shift it, and if we continue this, that is, obviously we'll make you aware in advance so you're not fucked over. A thing to note, actually, that's really important. Is Guzza single? Harry? Unfortunately not. He is
No.
he's engaged. Guzza
No.
character, I don't know. Harry, unfortunately,
Fortunately.
he's
Did
well,
not.
I say unfortunately, very fortunately,
Mar-
because he's
Okay.
engaged to a lovely
Married
person.
man.
Of course,
Oh,
very
there's a lot to that
fortunately.
question, buddy.
Wait, though, is Guzza single? That's the
Well, that's what I'm
question.
saying. I don't know if you're
That's-
referring to Harry or Guzza, but
That's the important question.
yeah. But
Well, Harry's mine, just so you know.
I
but
get the
anyway,
impression that we are all very, very.
yeah.
Zadie's interested.
So,
Speaking of which, can I get another sample, please?
oh, we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, I mean, again, if you guys do have any questions to pose to us, or any comments you want to leave, I'm gonna try and get this up on YouTube by the end of the week. Again, assuming there's no technical problems, assuming we're all happy to put it up on YouTube, all that kind of thing, because like this is scary. This is scary for us. This is we're putting ourselves out on a limb, but you guys, like I said, have been fantastic. Like I said, we're going to be putting this. Ideally, this will be up by Friday, so it's there for the weekend, so you guys can have a look at it. But if you do want to give us any comments, anything nice, if you've got constructive criticism, that's also appreciated. If you're going to be nasty, just please leave it at the door. That's all I ask, because there's enough nastiness in the world that we don't need more. But if you don't like it, you don't have to come back, and that's totally fine as well. But if you want to give any feedback, either put it in the comments. Nice snake. Either put it in the comments of the YouTube thing on YouTube, because I probably won't see the Twitch comments. Or if you want to go to the Discord, I've got a D&D channel in there now. It's just a place you can go discuss it. If you feel like it, there's no onus to join. But I just want to have a little place where I can just post little things about D&D that I like, as well as this. Regardless of us streaming, I also just like D&D a lot. And these people make it even better. So, don't inject yourself with blood that's not yours. This is good life advice.
I mean,
It's not in their body.
I read that capital D-O as do.
Do.
But whatever you say, I mean,
I mean, let's be fair.
truth is
Zadie's
out there.
blood can do good things.
But I think that's where we'll leave it, guys. Because again, I don't see any questions, but I do. That's totally fine. I was just basically offering if anyone did have any questions. But like I said, any comments, any feedback, any other questions, please throw them to us on Discord. Like I said, just make sure they're nice. That's what I ask. Fuck, I haven't done a sign off before. I haven't planned for a sign off besides a picture. So I guess we all say goodbye. Well, see you later.
I think you look away from frame, look at the camera, laugh and wave.
Fade to black.
But if you want to say your goodbyes, we should see you next week. So peace.
Get some epic song.
Peace out, guys. And yeah, you might see me tomorrow or Thursday if you care anything about that. But it doesn't matter. Peace out, guys. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you guys.
Thank you.
Woo. What are we doing? Are we still here? I